Hello, where have you been on Thursday nights over the last few weeks? I'll tell you where I've been. I've been a wee bit lost. I've been missing the vPub, and I hope, at least a wee bit, that a lot of you have been missing it too. So tonight, we kick things back off again. The summer's done. The summer's over. I'm gonna start to look forward to whiskey season once more. I've got the man from somewhere in the Irish Sea joining me tonight as well to have a bit of a session about community knowledge, and then just naturally roll into launching the Online Scotch Whisky Awards for 2024. I'm looking forward to it, as always, and I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome back to the vPub after me lazing in my summer hammock for the last few weeks. We've not had much of a summer here. Listen, the weather's been absolutely dreich. It's been terrible. It's been wet, wet, wet. But luckily, I got a wee break in Spain and I'd managed to recharge the vitamin D. So it's not all been bad. But regardless, yes, I have found myself, like I do every summer, I always take a break. It's very good to take a break, but I always find myself kind of fidgety on a Thursday night. What am I going to do with myself of a Thursday evening? That said, the break is always very, very good. It's always healthy to take these breaks and put in these kind of fire breaks and recharge a little bit and avoid a wee bit of burnout and things like that. And I've really been looking forward to getting back. Regular sessions of the vPub, Thursday night kicking off again, our little dedicated time just to kind of shut things down, open up the laptops, whatever it is you're watching, maybe boot it up on your TV screen, pour a wee dram, put your feet up and relax for a bit. So thank you if you're one of those folk participating live. Also, thank you to everyone that's picking this up on the replay, like I know so many of you do. It's very much appreciated. Welcome back, everyone. It's good to have everything going again on a Thursday night. Cheers and sláinte to you all. Fantastic to have so many of you in as well. Obviously, I always worry every year that you go off and find something else to do of a Thursday evening and you forget that the vPub is coming back again. It's amazing to see so many familiar faces. And I'm going to obviously hop in a wee minute and welcome you all in. But first, I'll tell you what we're going to run through tonight. Ralfy and I have been obviously speaking recently and just kind of formulating things and shaping things up for the Online Scotch Whisky Awards for 2024. And quite a few of our conversations and the directions that those conversations took meant that instead of me proposing the original topic that I wanted to talk about with Ralfy, there was a very kind of obvious topic that just kept coming up. And that was just talking about the amount of awareness that's out there about whiskey now, the amount of real knowledgeable, useful, valuable information, guidance, good quality guidance that is out there in our community is quite staggering. Now, I'm going to keep a lot of the questions, I'm going to keep a lot of the topic fresh for when Ralfy drops in, because it's inspired me to think about a lot of things. And has Ralfy seen a contrast? Has he seen a change over the years? Has the internet accelerated that? All of these things. Has our online community, as it's built with more and more creators stepping forward, more and more knowledgeable people stepping forward, whether they're on this side of the camera or that side of the camera, or wherever it may be. It doesn't always need to be in WhiskyTube. The amount of knowledge that's available today is huge. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what used to exist, what exists today, and we're just going to recognize that that naturally gives a fertile ground for initiatives like the Online Scotch Whisky Awards to be realized. So that's going to be the first half of the session tonight. And then we'll take you into the plans and the dates and the structure for the 2024 Online Scotch Whisky Awards. The OSWA are kicking off in earnest tonight with a wee tweak, but it's only a minor tweak. The sharp-eyed among you will already know what that is. Or if you're a patron of Ralfy's or a patron of mine, you'll know what that is, because after Ralfy and I tested it with a couple of our helpers this week. We put it out into our patrons today to make sure it was okay. And like they always do, they picked up a couple of wee quirks and errors that we managed to fix, so it's good to go. So we'll let you know about all of that later tonight. In the meantime, I'm going to raise this glass to welcome you all and jump into the lounge like I always do, as everyone's piling in and settling themselves and pouring their drams and maybe having to be reminded by the YouTube alerts that the vPub is kicking off in earnest. I hope you're comfortable. It's going to be nice to welcome all of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Cheers. Doodle the Dram. Straight away, I wonder if we've started with a brand new name or potentially somebody that's just modified their handle a wee bit. Geez, Aquavita, it's so nice to have you back in our Thursday evening. It's so nice to have you in there with kind words. Doodle the Dram, welcome, my friend. Island Hopper Stuart is here too. Good to see you, buddy. He's saying, good evening, Roy. Good to have you back again. Superb, Stuart. Wonderful to see you, buddy. Great to welcome you in. My friend Ali, from Peru. Well, he's actually he's a Kintyre resident now, isn't he? Good to have you in, Alex. Wonderful to welcome you here. Jean Kelly saying, greetings, fellow maltmates and barflies. So good to be back. And hello, Ralfy and Aquavite. Jean, can't believe that you're here. Looking forward to hanging out with you in the season ahead. Nice to welcome you in. As Blair Stevenson as well saying, evening, all evening, Aquavite. I have indeed missed your face recently. I've missed yours too, my friend. Not been at the Whiskey Club either, so we've not been able to see each other in real life either. Maybe make up for that next week, buddy. Good to have you in. Scott Allen from Arizona saying, great to have you back, Roy. Scott, I hope you're doing very well, my friend. I was hanging out with one of your friends earlier this week. Tom Oettinger is over with his wife, Michelle, and we mentioned you. So it'd be wonderful to welcome you some point in the future as well, yourself and Becky. Scott, good to have you in, buddy. Jeff Whiskey is saying, looking well and recharged. Jeff just went live earlier. He did a wee kind of session, a live session before we went live tonight, celebrating his 2,000 subscribers. This is what we talk about when we're grinding things out. These things, especially YouTube, it's difficult. It's difficult, especially in a niche topic, a niche field like whiskey. But Jeff's been plugging away in the background. One of my favorite, most fun channels to watch. I think I would watch Jeff and the way he puts things together and the way he shares content, regardless of what the subject matter is. The fact that it's whiskey is a bonus. But congratulations to my pal Jeff, and a huge thanks to him for covering the vPub while we were on summer break. Cheers to you, Jeff. And a thanks to my pal Vin as well for doing one last week. But of course, I was able to join him live for that one. And a great fun it was too. Helped me warm up the vPub a wee bit. Glad to be back, says Klitsch. Good to have you, buddy. And Daniel Williams from Netherlands is saying, I've been here all along. It's you who's been missing. Evening, mate. Good to see you. I can imagine that, just people kind of sitting waiting and going, oh yeah, it's not on tonight. Tim, good to have you in, Daniel. I hope you're doing well. Tim Pills is saying, hey, evening, Roy. Nice to see you back. Good to have you as well, Tim. Wonderful to welcome you in. And he's here, the man from Nova Scotia. Jimmy Legg is saying, I've never heard of you, Aquavite, but someone on Jeff Whiskey's channel mentioned that you were okay, so I thought I'd check you out, no pressure. Okay, Jimmy Legg, let's see what we can do to have you coming back again next week. I hope you and Angie are doing well, buddy. Good to have you in. Whiskey Weekend Drama, that's Harrow saying, one thing to do now is an Aquavite whiskey in the glass. Aquavite, okay, maybe Harrow, you're going to be pouring one of the Loch Lomans. Thank you very much for your support, and I hope you're enjoying them. Gav's Drams, my friend in Edinburgh, Gav. Hello, Royce, nice to see you back. Listen, Gav, and it meant to hook up with you and see how your Edinburgh Whiskey Club was going. You've probably had one or two meetings since I last saw you, right? Since before the summer break. I hope that's kicking off nicely and doing very, very well. I'm hoping that I can come through and maybe, if I'm allowed, join you for a wee session. But if anybody is close to Edinburgh and interested in hooking up with like-minded whiskey enthusiasts, Gav has tried to kickstart a bit of a community, a live whiskey club over there in Edinburgh, and he'd probably be willing to love to hear from you. Menno, of course, Menno's here. There's a familiar face, even Roy Aquavite. You seem happy, keen, and eager. I am very much, Menno. I've missed everyone, and I've missed you, my friend. Good to have you in, Menno. Molasses Mike is saying, cheers, Roy. So great to have you in the vPub back. It's so much cheaper than professional therapy. I can't offer any therapy here, Mike. But if I can offer some quiet time and some time to kind of kick back and be a contemplative or hang out with fellow like-minded folk, then that's certainly a given. Good to have you in, buddy. Marco is here as well. Marco, good to have you here as well. Welcome back. We met Ralph and I were talking about you just a wee bit earlier. Very positive stuff, buddy. I hope things are good in Germany, and it's nice to have you in the vPub. Max from Austria is saying, good evening, my friend. I missed you so much. Great to see your lovely face again. Hugs and smooches from both the Crichters. Hugs and smooches right back to you and Christina, buddy. I hope you're keeping very, very well. It's good to have you in here. Thanks for the kind words. Rick Johnson is saying, greetings from San Francisco, Roy. Ralfy and fellow barflies, great to be back at the bar. Rick Johnson is actually travelling for the Glasgow Whisky Festival this year, all the way from the west coast of the US. Can't wait to have an opportunity to meet you, Rick, and it's fantastic to welcome you in tonight, even though you're 8 hours behind us. A grain of malt in Sweden. Howdy, folks. That's James saying, howdy, Roy. Good to have you in, buddy. I hope you're keeping well too. Bruno Martin's in Portugal. Jerry Miller in the northeast US. Fernando is here too, saying, hello, evening, Roy and barflies. Feels fantastic to have you back. Lots and lots of comments coming in. It's moving far too fast. We're approaching 400 folk in already, and we've only just opened the doors. Great stuff. Let's not miss these things here. David Evans, Mark, Bruno Martins, A Grain of Malt, Jesse Artanzalo, and Graham Brown are all celebrating being members of the Aquavitae Barflies. Very interesting thing that's happening there. All of these barflies keep the vPub ad free. You'll never sit through ads to watch the start of the vPub, or you'll never see an ad at the end of the vPub or anywhere in between, because the barflies have rendered that redundant, and it makes me feel a lot better too. Thank you for your support. Thank you all for your support. Fernando as well. Whiskey shared. Toby, good to see you in, buddy. All members of the barflies all saying, cheers, Roy. Glad to be back, says Bruno. Fiddly 2 months. Fiddy 2 months, a grain of malt, Fiddy 2 months. Welcome back, my friend, from James. Good evening, barflies and Aquavitae. Welcome back, says Jesse. And Crivens, 2 years. Keep being you, Roy. So he's been supporting for the last 2 months as a barfly. And David Evans is saying evening from Spain. Good evening. What do you say? Buenas noches. Fernando is saying, has just joined the barflies. Fernando, thank you so much. But we know that you've already been a member for a long time, but it looks like you've been given... you've had your barfly restored. I hope that's happened, Fernando. And Toby is saying, good evening, Roy. I hope you're doing well. Whiskey with Molly Ben has bought me a wee dram to say Glen Scotia in the glass for Kate Renton. Suddenly taken from us today. R.I.P. Kate, love to Callum and the family. Listen, it's written down in front of me here, Ben. Thank you so much for pointing it out. The news came today, and we have to mark it. We have to mention it. Our friend, one of us, our friend Callum, needs love and strength sent his way. His wife was taken from him earlier this week. Middle of the night, a complete surprise. I got to spend some time with Callum and Kate in Campbelltown earlier this year. I've bumped into Callum a couple of times now. Wonderful, wonderful guy. And I've bumped into Kate too. I am absolutely devastated to hear the news. Callum, remember that we are here. Our thoughts are with you. And I hope the barflies will join me in sending you love and strength when you need it. We're here, fella. I'm sorry. David Hong has bought me a jam as well. David, welcome in, my friend. He's saying, welcome back, my friend. David Hong has bought us a wee dram to kick things off again for the new session. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for your support. Daniel Williams is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 44 months. 44 Droopy Draws. He's saying, remember to like and subscribe. Brian Cabayas is celebrating being a member for 7 months, saying, welcome back, sir. And Jimmy Legg is a member for 53 months. Is that how long the Barfly program has been going now? You offer plenty of therapy, my friend. He's saying, thank you, Jimmy Legg. Thank you so much. Your Uncle Vanya, good to see you, and fantastic. She's saying, I second the therapy statement from both yourself and the community. Missed you all. Fantastic to welcome you in. As always, wonderful to have you here. Thank you for your support for the last 19 months. Dave Barnes as well, celebrating being a member for 27 months. William Killian for 21 months. Finally able to catch a live one, he's saying. Jay Vaughan is celebrating being a member for 39 months. Welcome back, Aquavitae. My goodness, so much. This is just, what have I been doing on my Thursday nights? This is fantastic. Thank you so much. Evening Royce is finally done. Hope you enjoyed your well-earned rest. And Whiskey Liberation Front, that's Lee J, is saying, thanks to you, Roy. My club is 3 years old today. Cheers. Fantastic. Lee J. Brown. Thank you, finally done. Thank you, Lee J. Okay, without further ado, let's raise a wee glass and celebrate something wonderful. There's a new barfly that I want to welcome in. I want to welcome in under the guidance of his canny granddad, who is known to us all. We'll just call him Andy, shall we? I want to raise a wee glass and say welcome to Kieran and happy birthday. It's a significant birthday. We don't need to mention which significant birthday it is, but it's nice to have you here. Kieran, your name might be Kieran Widowson, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. But many happy returns, Kieran. Cheers to you, fella. The ginger ale will taste less nice as you learn to taste the flavours in the whiskey. Graham Young in Canada, fantastic. So sorry to hear the news, Callum. The loss is so significant in any of our lives. My heart goes out to you. Lost my dad recently, and it still stings. Graham, thank you very much for your kind words to Callum as well. I doubt very much that Callum will get the opportunity to drop into a vPub anytime soon or whatever, but I know that any time that any of us bump into him or across his paths or whatever, there'll be hugs and comfort available from all of us. We like to look out for each other. Multi-Mission Menno is suggesting that Shayla is also celebrating today. So that suggests that Shayla has a birthday today. Shayla from Whisky Central, who is making her way over to Europe as we speak. I think she's going to make France her resident home for the foreseeable future, which means she's joining us at the Glasgow Whisky Festival in November. Can't wait. Yet to meet Shayla in real life. Obviously, I've got to know her over the years as she supported me doing pop-up vPubs and things like that. She covered a summer one year as well. It's going to be interesting to meet Shayla for the first time, and I'm looking forward to it. In the meantime, Shayla, happy birthday. I've still got a gift here for you. Cheers. Ellswood is saying, cheers, Roy. A big 18th for Kieran and a barfly in training, says Helen. Well, he's under very, very good guidance indeed, which is a perfect segue to launch into tonight's topic. Guidance, 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 and community knowledge. Ralfy and I have talked at length about just how much we pick up on how knowledgeable our community is. It really helps us stay on topic. It helps us stay relevant. It helps us stay humble. It helps us realize that we are not really here to present and tell and show and dictate and force. We're simply here to share what we love sharing and to talk about it from our perspective and things like that. I think it's quite easy for me to always realize that I can learn something off everyone I meet, literally. And I don't just mean about whiskey, of course, but specifically in the context of whiskey, everyone you meet you can learn something from. And it really makes you look at the whole scene in a very, very different way. Certainly how it's developed in recent years. I don't just mean the last couple of years, but 5 years, 10 years and beyond. And there's a very, very obvious good reason for that. So Ralfy and I are going to talk about that tonight. We're going to celebrate it a little bit. We're going to talk and hopefully get some conversation going with a few prompts, how things have changed over the years, how we've come to rely on our communities, how we've come to enjoy them and value them, and how we've come to realize that it's no way ever a single direction relationship. There's so much reciprocity, so much reciprocal information, let's say, going backwards and forwards. There's so much of a bi-directional dynamic where we learn just as much from you as you could ever possibly learn from us. And that's so much more, that's so much about what the online community is about. I feel it more and more all the time. So to mark that and celebrate that is a very, very obvious topic that will help us go into the reasons behind the Online Scotch Whisky Awards and the reasons why we've made some light adjustments to it for 2024. Great to see you had a restorative holiday, says Tom Franey. Tom, so nice to have you in, buddy. Nice to welcome you back, and thanks for your nice words. Missed you, Roy. Glad to be back for a normal Thursday, and I'm glad to be back in Scotland at the end of October. Tobias Loke, you're coming back to Scotland, are you? Maybe we'll get a chance to raise a dram together, Tobias. And Anthony Lambert is saying, hit 58 last Sunday, maturing nicely. Anthony, there's no need for you to share your age, but we're grateful that you did. Many happy, but slightly belated returns, my friend. Happy birthday, Anthony. Happy birthday, Tobias. I'll do that again. Cheers. And Anthony Lambert is here. Oh, sorry. No, it's Anthony. I was right the first time. Why did I correct myself? So sorry, Anthony. It's Anthony Lambert that's hit 58 last Sunday. The chat is moving so fast. And I'm a wee bit rusty. So I hope I'll be forgiven tonight. Okay, wonderful to welcome you all. But let's welcome in the fella who's sitting patiently in his bothy in the background. Probably Fluffy, the cat, is around his feet somewhere, knocking things over and doing God knows what else. So we'll bring him in and get things started. Of course, it's become a bit of a tradition for us to break from summer to get things back on the go again and welcome Ralfy in to talk about whiskey in general, whatever topic suits our whim, and kick off and launch another season of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Ralfy, if you're ready, my friend, come in and raise a wee glass with us, won't you? How you doing, fella?
Oh, hey, wait a minute. Fluffy, out. Out. You are barred. I'm fed up with you bringing these dead mice into the bothy. It's got to stop. I've given you your treats. You're all treated out. You're demanding more. Now you're threatening me with, oh, here he is. You're threatening with blackmail. It's got to, no, you're barred. Out. You know, what is it with cats, Roy? They don't do as they're told. Now, if
no.
And now you've got your wee fluffy toffee arse right in front of the camera here. This is putting off the malt mates here, you know that?
Winking at us.
Absolutely winking.
Well, it's true what they say, though, that dogs have owners and cats have staff, right?
Yeah, cats have staff, right?
He's up there looking for his treats, you know.
More treats. He's had treats, Roy. And now
you'll exchange them for those mice, won't he? You'll keep the bothy mouse free for you.
Yeah, out you go. And once you finish the treats, you're barred.
How are you? How are you keeping? I heard.
Asking, Roy. I'm doing wonderfully well. I'm soldiering on here in the bothy, somewhere in the middle of the Irish Sea in this rustic, slightly damp, and occasionally whiskey-soaked bothy. It's been a warm summer, but you can definitely see that there is a downturn and it's a lot quieter as regards whiskey interest, right? So I think from something that you mentioned earlier in a conversation, we're definitely seeing a stronger seasonality around whiskey. So that particularly from September, October, it's the run up to whiskey festivals and people are much more aware of the independent bottling releases. What's the best? What's the rest? What's being discounted at the supermarket, which is still not worth the money in the discount? What are the seasonal releases from distilleries who are increasingly desperate to attract people's interest because, unfortunately, they may have pumped their prices a little bit too high in relation to the quality they are offering. And this is the knowledge. And this is what you and I are always on the lookout for. This is what we share in our channels. But and following the theme of your inaugural season, autumnal season collection vPub, it's the knowledge we get back from the community. I'm really picking up in this, particularly this year in 2024, because at the beginning of the year, I kicked off a Discord channel for Patreon subscribers. And although I don't contribute too much to it, because I want it to be an internal community conversation, I'm really impressed by the quality of the dialogue, the helpfulness of experienced malt mates to less experienced malt mates, and the real practical usefulness for not just, and we've moved beyond the geeks and enthusiasts like you and I, presenting our perspective to something that's actually morphing online as part of the ambient whisky community, global whisky community, that's becoming more complex. It's becoming more of a spider's web of to and froing of information. And something I'm making a point of is looking for what people have really enjoyed in the Discord conversation and saying, right, is it affordable? Should I be buying it? And should I be reviewing it?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
It's all good.
And I think it's your Discord is obviously very, very active. We talked about this earlier. It can be difficult. It takes on a life of its own. There's anxiety that comes with that, and then you realize, no, that's what we want. We want it to live. We want it to be an organic thing. It's a bit like the Aquavitae Barflies Facebook page, where we have people come in as moderators, admins, whatever it may be. They take care of it, keep it clean, keep it on topic, keep it, and it just becomes another wonderful place for people to connect and get together. And it's amazing the relationships and friendships that can blossom from these places. Ralfy, these are changed days, right? These are changed days. I'm just going to go into the first question because you give me a perfect segue to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Before Discord groups, before dedicated Facebook groups, before YouTube channels with people like Roy and Ralfy banging their gums every week, back in the day, before 2009, before you kicked off what you do today, 15 years ago now, wow, congratulations. Yeah. Where did Ralfy get his knowledge? What gave you the impetus? What gave you I would never suggest that there was ever any degree of confidence, but something made you settle yourself enough to go on camera. Where did that knowledge experience come from back then?
The seed was sown as a 4-year-old when I first raided my dad's drinks cabinet. And of course,
you're going back 35 years now.
At least, and the rest. And of course, what appealed to me was the Kahlua. I really enjoyed the Kahlua.
Now remind me, Kahlua, is that what flavor is that? It's not coffee, is it?
It's Mexican coffee liqueur.
Yeah.
Right, so have you got time for a story?
Okay, it's the vPub. We've always got time for stories.
Okay. A few years ago, I bought a bottle of Mexican 20-year-old rum, and I'd made inquiries and told, it's actually 20 years old. And I thought, that's unusual for rum. It was 60 quid a bottle. So I bought a bottle, and it had this kind of raffia sort of straw kind of spun sort of cover over the bottle. And it was a bit weird and quite exotic. And I poured a glass, and it was very pleasant, but there was something strange and familiar about it. I think it was called Mahombo or Montambo or something. And I just couldn't put my finger on it at all. And I'm nosing it and I'm tasting it. And gradually this Kahlua note started to come through the rum. And I thought, aha, I know that from somewhere. I actually went out and bought a contemporary bottle of Kahlua, which isn't as good as the original liqueur, because many aren't. I just, we know these things.
Yeah.
It's more shorthand, but it was definitely the actual emotional, psychological trigger started with a sweet liqueur and a 4-year-old thinking this is quite tasty. But now that I've had enough, I'll go out and lie down behind the garden shed for a couple of hours and sleep it off. Kids are smart. And then later, of course, I'm asking my dad, he's got a little glass of Talisker, a little glass of Rosebank, a little glass of Springbank, which he thought was the best. And these were gift bottles because he'd done some library research for people. And rather than take money, which would have been a financial thing, he thought, no, I'll just accept a gift. But he made it quite clear what gift he wanted. So he'd have these little Victorian thimble liqueur glass size drops of whiskey with no water added. He wasn't nosing it. He was just sipping it while he listened to his Renaissance and Baroque music on the record player. Remember them? We're talking the 1960s, 70s.
Well, I've got a teenage daughter who has a record player installed in her room and loves it very much. It's funny how these things come round again. But yeah, but
it's proper vintage.
Starting at 4 years old is not typical.
It's not typical, and
I was 34 years old before I got the taste for whiskey.
Just think how you've saved your liver. Roy.
Well, I suppose that's one. Well, I say that, but I don't want to break your rhythm here because I'd like to pick up on where you got your knowledge from. But mentioning it, and it's worthwhile suggesting, because before I discovered whiskey, Ralfy, I was into wine and beer, and there was no monitoring of how much I was sipping or dare I say, drinking.
We didn't do it.
And you just drank what you drank, and whatever company you were in, the transition from the work week to the weekend, going out on kind of long sessions and benders and things, and just drinking away. And you were not drinking for flavour; you were drinking for drinking's sake. And
I want to interrupt here, ladies and gentlemen, malt mates and whiskey fans. I just want to let you know what a bender is. A bender is a strong, aggressive, alcoholic session which ends in intoxication and subsequent accusations causing embarrassment and threats to your health.
And usually the loss of a day or two following said bender. Those days are long gone and behind me now, but I do have to thank whiskey for that, because and I wasn't aware that that's what the switch that was being flicked at the time, but when I changed from drinking to sipping for flavor's sake, it helped me. And because you're chasing flavor all the time, the fact that it's alcohol really makes you mindful, because you don't want to be drunk and not taste the flavor anymore, right? You want to just keep that explosion, that fascinating, amazing layered thing that happens with whiskey. Sugar Kitty's bought us a dram. He's bought Fluffy a dram as well, and he said, "Here's a cat treat for Fluffy, who will furthermore be known as Cat Holio." I am Cat Holio. Welcome back, Roy, says Mike B. I'll be over in Scotland next month to make a second pilgrimage to Campbelltown and Islay. Hope to meet some barflies while there, Mike. It would be amazing if we had an opportunity to cross paths too. It's tricky for me to cross paths with all the people that are visiting right now, but if we keep in touch, it means that if I'm out in town or if I'm available, we can. Aye, so back in the days, I'm grateful to whiskey. But when I got into whiskey, Ralfy, when that happened, when that switch was flicked, there were online resources, but they weren't anything like. I'm mindful of the Mark Connolly's project, and I know you didn't do it alone. I think it was with other people, the www whiskey forums. You might remember that.
I started off whiskey.com.
That's right, and it's still. I think it's still going. It's still in existence out there. It's still going. We also had the Malt Maniacs way back in the day. I know it was Johannes and everyone, but Serge is obviously the one that's really endured and come to the forefront over the years. But there was a time that these guys were, and a few others around them, but the resources were quite light on the ground back in the day. Am I wrong? Were you using these guys for knowledge back in the day, or were you getting it from somewhere else?
Occasionally, but really I was getting my knowledge first of all in a local pub in Partick in Glasgow, from people who actually worked in the whiskey industry. And obviously when you're buying them a pint, it kind of gets them a little bit more chatty. And this is retired coopers, the ladies working in the bottling hall, who were quite happy to tell the stories of smashed bottles and sieving the whiskey back out to reclaim it and all the rest of it. I mean, business is business. And quite important, I really, really appreciated that conversation in that environment, because it broke the sentimentality that is so carefully and consistently manufactured by the industry in all its normalized cliches, which have been enduring for so long, about the purple heather, the rutting stags, and all this Victorian schmaltz attitude and reinterpretation of Highland life. And also Glasgow's Whisky Club was very important, Roy, because I happened to. It had not long started. I think they were into about the third session when I popped along, meeting in a 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, when no sane person should be consuming whiskey.
Oh, it's Glasgow.
It's Glasgow. That's what it's absolutely. So we met in Hope Street in a little whiskey bar that some folk may be aware of called the Pot Still.
Yep.
And at the back of the bar, it's got a 4-step mezzanine area. And it's just enough to hold 12 people, which is what basically Glasgow Whisky Club was at the time. And we're looking for new premises. And over the next 2 years, it substantially grew in tandem with the revitalization of Whisky Live, which was the industry's sponsored event, which had moved to George Square in Glasgow and was marquee based. And it was, it was the first opportunity to actually stand and chat to people and discover who actually worked in the industry and who was just an employed hired hand from Glasgow University or somewhere, or from a fashion house, to pour the drams and just tell you it's nectar of the gods. So it was a real fast learning curve from there. And in 2009, when I'd had my accident, put my shoulder out, and for the first time in my entire career, I was off work for a significant period of time, for 2 months, in fact. And I'd had a shot at a traditional blog with a few witty little short commentaries, but it gained no traction. But I suppose that as soon as I sat down, I had the heavier jumper on, I had the bonnet on, because it's just what I was wearing at the time. And the best things can often happen by accident. And it was in the back room of my house in Glasgow. And there was no audience for the first week until another established blogger absolutely tore me to shreds in a comment.
A hit piece. In a hit piece.
In a hit piece, yes. I mean, you cannot buy that publicity, Roy. I've since thanked him for doing it, because he now works in the industry for his sins. And it was just, I went from 100 subscribers to 1,000 subscribers in less than a week. And at that point, I'm looking at other content online, which tends to be very shorthand, cliched. The other established and the first really formal Scotch whisky presence was Single Malt TV. But you could see that they were, in fact, an extension, a BBC-style extension of whisky orthodoxy, very much nicely presented by a youthful Charlie McLean.
Charlie McLean, yeah.
But you could see it wasn't for all the production costs, the lighting, the scripting, and the very careful preparation for the screenshots. It was costing them a fortune in relation to the audience that we're getting. And I thought, actually, I've got to be different from that. So I'm just going to sit. I've got tasting notes in these whiskies, because I'm going to the Whisky Live. I'm going to Whisky Fringe, which had only just kicked off then. It was a very valuable portal to actually meet people who worked in the industry. And when you went up to the table, rather than just asking for a pour of the most expensive stuff that was hidden under the table, you said, by the way, could you just tell me more about your whiskey? What kind of barley you use, what yeast you use? And they're kind of taken aback that someone's asking these sort of questions and taking notes. But it was actually Whisky Fringe in Edinburgh, organised through Royal Mile Whiskies, who do a fantastic job of that event. After all these years, they've really sustained it so well that they actually gave me permission to go in to record, and that was my first kind of walk and talk on location out of the studio. And in fact,
is that still available? Is that there for posterity?
Oh, it's all there. Yes,
we can go back and see it.
A few I've had to remove for politically sensitive reasons over the years, but not many. I lost one of my cooperage vlogs because there was a radio playing in the background that I
Aye,
didn't
of course,
even
yes.
hear, right? I didn't even hear it because all the coopers were banging away,
No, the software hears it. The software hears it. Yeah.
but the software picked it up. And that was just, it just didn't cancel the sound. Well, it's cancelled the sound at first, because that's what they did in those days. And then I just had to say, well, forget it. Have to cancel that video. But I've got 2 remaining, so they're okay, and I'll record something else later. But it's been a very slow, methodical journey. And the highlight that I pick out is that it's the internet which has facilitated a connectivity around what we're interested in to a caliber which has simply never been available before. And therefore, people who are genuinely interested and invested in the hobby can pick up the real knowledge that they need to know, and that is what's the good stuff at a better price and what's the crap I need to avoid.
And how do these things come about? How is this good and how is this not so good? And what
Yeah.
are the dynamics behind all of this stuff? I'll have to say that it was amazing to me. And you make a great point about single malt TV. And there's great content out there, but it's very much kind of video for video's sake, in a presentation style, almost like it's a documentary, almost like they didn't understand, like so many people back in the day, what YouTube could potentially be, and they were treating YouTube as just another media outlet, just another platform, just another way to share the exact same content in the exact same traditional style. They hadn't worked out that there was sharing of these videos, that there was a content section underneath it, that people could ask questions and that people could interact in things, and there was no provision made for it. If you were to put a comment under a single malt TV video, there's not much chance anybody's going to reply or even click like or love or thanks or whatever.
In all honesty, Roy, it's got to the stage that I've got so many comments on my videos, I can't reply to them.
Well, and I think that people understand that these days, but when you do drop in, Ralfy, in the past, you've dropped in and you've answered my comments and videos and it's like a wee lift in your day. Oh, Ralfy read my comment. There's a wee like here. There's a wee thumbs up. It's fantastic that there's that flicker of the idea that you're able to connect with the person that's making the content that you're enjoying, and the value of that is huge. I'll tell you just very, very quickly that I was kind of aware of this back in the day when I started to watch Ralfy and things like that. There was a few other channels that started, and some of them have endured, but not so many of them, of course. It's a difficult thing to do, but there would be a wee bit of a kind of mistake, or they had picked up some misinformation or disinformation for somebody else and they just repeated it, and it was kind of a wee bit clumsy or a wee bit, and you were like, you're frustrated because you're enjoying the content and you're triggered by a very obvious and maybe potentially a wee bit of a lazy misunderstanding. And I just felt like maybe there's an opportunity for me to get involved here. So you leave a wee comment, sometimes it gets read, sometimes not so much. What really switched the lights on for me was back in the day when maybe 2015, 2016, I don't even remember now, Scott Adamson from Tomatin and his other pal Scott joined the Scotch Test Dummies for a live stream, and the Scotch Test Dummies were allowed to ask them any question that they wanted. And they took questions from the community and asked those guys anything they wanted as well. So it's the luxury that we've enjoyed, Ralfy, at Whisky Live, whatever it may be, and taking it and giving it to people wherever they may be, wherever they're located, to give them the ability to do that same thing. You segued perfectly into my second question, how much the internet has fundamentally changed, not just in whiskey, of course, but this is a vPub, so in the context of what we talk about. How has the internet changed the knowledge base, the knowledge level in the last, you must have seen a huge contrast in the last 15 years.
There's enormous contrast, because when hosting a channel, one of the most important things that any creator does is the grind. And the grind is basically whatever happens, make sure you've got new videos every week. This is so important because to break that continuity, you start to lose your audience. And when you do, you're disengaging with the audience. So I could see quite earlier on, Roy, that it's actually making sure that you have your own personal momentum and start to and really kind of do that extra kind of deep dig into what's the value, what's the core mission of a channel, and particularly when you're self-funding through the subscribers to Patreon and some advertising from YouTube, and even getting some funding now from what we bottle ourselves occasionally to, maybe a single cask once a year. It just gives that little extra that we can do more research, we can kind of do more visits, we can spend more time phoning people, speaking to people. And to be honest, I'm not talking distilleries here, I'm talking retailers.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, could you tell me what's selling? What are you selling that's exciting, that you've got into your shop, that you've tasted a sample before you even stocked it, that I should be thinking about? Is it whose turn is it next? Is it Lindoris? Is it Loch Lee? Is it Glenweavis? Is it Isle of Harris? Where's the zeitgeist? Now, you and I know, everybody knows, anybody watching the vPub at the moment will know the zeitgeist is firmly with Ardnamurchan at the moment, because do
you think that's deserved?
I think it's absolutely deserved, because they've moved into the United States with a very well tailored bottling for the audience in the US who are already know about them before the bottles arrive, because
and how did that happen?
How did that happen? Absolutely. And so they're smart. They're playing, well, this saying goes, a brand ambassador in the Bon Accord earlier this year says, the thing is, what you notice with some whiskey companies, some play checkers when they need to be playing chess. And it's like a kind of game of chess. You want to sell your product. How do you dictate to your consumer what your product is? Or do you kind of listen, put your ear to the railway line to see where the train's coming from, and then tailor what you're creating to make sure the quality is there, the price point is there, the excitement is there, that expectations are fulfilled. And to be playing this game of chess in an environment where other distilleries are automatically doubling the prices of a single malt brand for no specific reason, rather than vague claims that it's demand and supply, which doesn't.
The market will stand this price.
Ergo. The market will stand this price. And by the way, we've just brought out a 20-year-old whiskey at £800 a bottle. Give me a break. People don't believe the industry hyperbole anymore. And they're reinforced, their suspicions are reinforced and endorsed by the quality of conversation that's happening online by content creators, but even more so by the fact that those following content become content creators themselves within the different forums and platforms, be it Reddit, Facebook, or Discord.
I'll even suggest that the live chat that's happening right now, Ralfy, because even people that watch our lives on the replay have the ability to join in and participate in the live chat that's happening.
Yeah.
So you've got this kind of the sideline discussion, but also the discussion that's prompted by what's been said on the stream, and you've got their take, you've got their input. Sometimes it's an agreement, sometimes it's consensus, other times it's like, oh no, well I felt like, and it's all of it. It's just so value, and you end up by being in that. I mean, Rick Johnson just used a great word, kinship. I love it. By being in that environment, you just start to it's almost by knowledge, by osmosis. You soak it in, right? You soak it in. Doodle the Drams bought us a generous dram to say the community here has made me fall in love with my new hobby so fast. It's so much fun to sip along with such a pool of enthusiasm and knowledge. Thank you, everyone here. And of course, Roy and Ralfy. Doodle the Dram, thank you so much. Good words. And I think a lot of people would back you up on that, me included. Cheers all. See some of you in November, says Jim. Good to see you in, Jim, Whiskey Novice. And Lauren Stack is saying, thank you, Roy and Ralphie, for what you're doing for the whiskey community. Cheers. So Lauren, who's over in Switzerland, Doodle the Dram, who's much more local to us as well. I need to work out who that is. And Jim, Whiskey Novice, thank you for your generosity and your kind words. Cheers. Sorry, Ralphie.
And the pivotal moment that all of us have witnessed has been pandemic lockdown. All of a sudden,
it's a quickening, wasn't it?
It was literally a significant step up, where the industry had no choice whatsoever as the pubs shut down, hotels shut down, travel retail shut down, your high street retailers without online sales resources, they shut down. This was catastrophic to the industry. No distillery visits, no brand ambassadors out and about, no hospitality themed events. And all of a sudden, they've got to swivel their heads and discover this thing which they've been steadfastly trying to avoid for long enough. And you can tell this by some of the dismal official websites that distilleries have, where they start off, tell us your age, tell us where you're from, tell us this, and then we'll let you into our site, and you can look at the overinflated prices of these bottles that we want to sell you, and you may get some useful, interesting information, but it's not that engaging. Some distilleries got it better than others.
Yeah,
many, they're far too conservative. And at this point, the traction that the online retailers, and we'll include Amazon in this, but Master of Malt, Whiskey Barrel, Whiskey Exchange, Royal Mile Whiskies, and the smaller retailers that had that reach, that's what sustained the industry. At which point they're saying, our marketing teams are absolutely useless at the moment. They cannot do their job. So can they tweet something? Can they Insta-bling something? Oh, well, now we're having a look at their audience, and frankly, they don't have an audience. And we've never really thought about this before. The Scotch whisky industry, one of its peculiar eccentricities is that it really lives in the past. There are a few enlightened producers who have got this. It's easier for them to capture the zeitgeist of the moment. We've mentioned Arden and Merkin, but we could also mention the Thompson brothers now, who are bringing out these tongue-in-cheek, high-quality, super-priced bottlings, very low quantity, but they're experimenting with a new generation of spontaneous marketing that they know, and we know, and we know they know, and they know we know they know.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like subliminal messaging in every bottle that they put out. It's like,
yeah,
it's like, as you talk about, you're talking about the butcher's apron, aren't you? You're talking about.
I remember when the cheapest blend you could get was Tesco's Scotch whisky, and it had a very similar red and white, super basic label. And to be honest, I mean, obviously I'm speculating that they have modeled that label on what you've got there, what, 50% 8-year-old, and how much a bottle?
No, it's 44.5, 50% Glenord, 50% Clynelish.
Right.
I don't know about the newer batch that came out. I was on holiday at the time. 35 quid.
35. That literally at the moment is just what, about $38 a bottle?
Yep.
For 50% Clynelish, 50% Glenord, both good, really good malts, bottled at higher strength. Sure.
With an age statement, Ralphie. With an age statement.
With an 8-year-old age statement, yeah. I mean, I've got to hand it to them. They're playing a great game. That's they're doing well.
I get the impression that people like the Thompson brothers are much more closely aligned with the enthusiast who's crying out for, somebody. There's a comment that came in there, and I wish I'd stopped to read it out because it was quite on point, and it was talking about how people are. Here it is. It's Brian Stormont has said, I've got real fears that the industry is close to the 1980s. Way too much whiskey, a lot of greed, lots of reductions in price, yet not selling. Maybe another whiskey loch coming. And I've always said if there is another whiskey loch, it's going to be a glass loch, because everybody's kind of, especially over the pandemic, as you say, it exacerbated this. People have been buying and storing and stashing. So now that the prices are hyped on the back of that greed, greed on both sides, by the way. I accept that we were greedy too. But we can now kick back and relax because we've got a big stash of whiskey to sit on.
Right. What's greedy about that?
Yeah, it's just
what's greedy. All we're doing is we're taking our resource of money and we're turning it into a quantifiable, quality-defined resource of future whiskey access.
As long as we keep it sealed, I suppose. But unfortunately, if you're like me, it's open and you're too curious and too nosy to keep it sealed and things. And I think that that's what the Thompson brothers have been able to tap into. What people are looking for now is not necessarily a step back in a time machine to the old days, but a way to access things under the conditions that we're operating in today. Restrictions put upon people in terms of what brands that they can use, how they can use the whiskey that's available, how they can make it appealing, how they can get it out in the hands of people who are drinkers and people that are not interested in having a pretty bottle on the side to show off to their pals, but actually good, wonderful liquid in order for them to drink and appreciate and remind themselves what it is just to be alive and to be mortal. You know, it's just
that comment's totally on point. There is a whiskey loch in the making, absolutely. And one distinct reason for this is the industry, as something I mentioned to you earlier in a conversation, has been resting on the success of a major trade agreement post-Brexit between Britain and India, because India is one of the biggest consumers of whiskey in the world, and there's no sign of that trend changing. In Britain and Europe, in the US, it is changing because people are moving away. Sure, there's the drinking culture. You'll see it in the spring students' weekend type thing. But there's more of a stigma about being blind drunk in public. And there's also awareness in all age groups that when social media records you being intoxicated in public, it affects your health rating for health insurance, your job prospects. You could make a comment which could get you arrested under naughty laws. This whole new open book of bad speech, Orwellian dogma stuff.
Ralfy, it's like you're reading my mind, the direction that things are going in here. Just quickly, I'll mention that Jimmy Legg makes a point that money is only has value if we all agree that it does. However, whiskey has value no matter what. It's nice, very deep, Jimmy. Finally Done is saying you could say that we've liquidated our assets, lol. And Whiskey Central, Sheila is in. Sheila, I hope you caught my birthday wishes a wee bit earlier. Happy birthday. It's nice to have you in. But look here. When you're talking about that, when you're talking about how we behave online, the stuff that we share online, the way that we communicate online and things like that, you're preempting the next question that I had prepared. And I just want to hit you with these because I want you to kind of respond to them fresh. Do we feel, I'm saying we, just to be polite. I'm just going to say, Ralfy, do you feel, the people in the vPub know, I think, how I feel, but do you feel a weight of responsibility sharing knowledge live online or recording and then sharing it online? Do you feel a weight of responsibility that comes with it?
I feel a weight of awareness of the consequences of becoming defamatory and unreasonable. I think there comes a fine line where you can present an opinion and it can be harsh and it can offend people. But if it has substance, then it should be said. I think it's very important, while the freedoms still remain online, to give an opinion and to be clear that it is an opinion. Then opinions should be given, and the audience, if they think you're just being a complete blowhard, they'll turn off. If they think that you do have a point, even when sometimes it's not what they want to hear, when you're criticizing practices like chill filtration, addition of caramel colorant, or the ever so many finishes, and the motivations behind them, then if it makes the industry uncomfortable, that's good. I mean, I do get feedback from distilleries. They say, Ralfy, we heard what you said,
Yep.
and they're shrugging their shoulders because there's nothing absolutely defamatory or libelous there. It comes with experience of. There was an attempt to sue me by an American distillery because of a review I gave. But when they discovered they'd not only have to bring in London lawyers, but also Isle of Man lawyers, and they realized that both legal systems are actually very different, because the Isle of Man legal system is Viking law, which is extremely unusual in this day and age. And of course, Anglo-Saxon or Norman law is what presides or law of precedent in English courts. And if you go to Scottish courts, it's Roman law. It's the law.
Presumably they're after you because you said something negative. And presumably you said something negative because you're standing up for the consumer, the enthusiast, the person that's going to spend their money to buy this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The old model of getting your knowledge and your information from the people who actually make the stuff, that's so gone. It's so old hat now. That presumably they're upset because you've said negative things. Would that be right?
They're upset because I've disrupted their narrative, which they probably actually believe themselves, because it's what they want to. It's the way they want to view their business and their product. So when someone kind of disrupts that narrative, empowered by the fact that they actually bought the whiskey, it's a whole different legal context. If I was given as a gift a bottle of whiskey and gave a bad review, then there is, under the eyes of the law, there is a contract there, although nothing's been signed in paper. And if a distillery can prove they gave me this gift, right, for review, and then I gave a bad review, and they feel that they have been cheated, then they'd have a case in a court of law. Whereas because I went out to a retailer or an auction and I bought that whiskey and I can show a receipt for the purchase of that whiskey to the court, that changes everything. And this is something that it's actually been a default benefit, because although there's been attempts twice to get my channel kind of shut down and even demonetized at one point, because it was considered disruptive, it's never really gained traction. And I don't think at this stage, 15 years later, if anybody was going to try anything, for example, the last real kickoff was actually with Glendronach, when I absolutely roasted them for introducing chill filtration into the range, particularly noticeable in the 12-year-old and the 15. And this is when Glendronach had been bought from Billy Walker by Brown-Forman, who may know about Jack Daniel's brands, but to be honest, in my opinion, were rather naive about the inner workings of the Scotch whisky industry. But they wanted a foothold because they're a corporation. And the result was that I made my commentary. It got a lot of attention, over 40,000 views in one video. And the result was I had the boutique award-winning consultants contact me. Of course, they'll get you an email no problem, because you can buy all that. And they say, "Oh, Ralfy, it was just 3 points we'd like to bring to your attention." Now they presume that you're going to kowtow to them. See, in the message they sent me, "Could you phone us, please, on this number?" Right. And I've sent a very polite email back saying, "I will not be phoning you. All communications as evidence, for evidence, shall be by email. How can I help you?" So they kind of followed through with these three points, one of which was, do you know that Brown-Forman is a family-owned company? And, you know, stocks and shares and all the rest of it, public? Oh, no, 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 not at all. So I basically pointed out that, in fact, they were giving me the wrong information, that if you look in the stock market, either in Wall Street or London, you'll find that Brown-Forman is, in fact, a listed public company, some of which is still owned under the traditional mechanism by the family, by the Daniel's family, or the extension of the family. And there's a few other points which were quite subjective, but you could tell that this was a sugar-coated put down and an attempt to just basically get me to rescind my opinion. And it backfired badly on them. And I passed it all by a lawyer who found it very enlightening, actually, because you've now got a stage where you have lawyers. Here in the Isle of Man, we've got a lawyer who specialises specifically in online activity. So I'm in touch with her, and we have quite a good rapport, actually. I've now got her into whiskey, funnily enough. It's funny that. And rum. She enjoys her rum too. But she's there's all sorts of which law applies to the internet. Is it local laws, regional laws, international laws? If you happen to be using the internet in a boat, is it sea law? Because the sea law and land law are two completely different systems. Nobody knows this.
I think we do feel the weight of responsibility. I think both of us, and I think what we need to do is to try and steer our boat and avoid all the potential. But you never know what could just pop up. You never know. But I do think that we have transcended the days of naivety, of looking at the internet as if it's the same as the old traditional media, wherever that would be, whether it was be print or broadcast or whatever. And they're now realizing that the internet is far more fiery, far more sentient. It's got a real kind of life of its own, and they have to be very, very careful, because if they react too hard to something that shouldn't be reacted to,
there'll be blowback.
It could really, really blow up. It could really. It's just. So I think that the weight of responsibility lays on the shoulders of all parties, the community, you and I, everybody, all our peers, all our commenters, whatever you want to call them, and the industry.
Right. You and I in particular are very mindful, because we meet the people who work in the industry, who work in distilleries, who do the humble jobs. They turn the barley, they sweep the floors, they clear out the stills. These are heavy jobs.
Try and sell the stuff. Try and promote the stuff.
They're all doing a job. They've got their own mouths to feed, and most have got families to feed. Many are based in rural communities around Scotland, where there are very few job opportunities, and their presence and raising families adds to the vitality of these communities.
It's not their fault.
It's not.
If the companies are putting out things that it's tough for them to hear, that it's not that great. It's tough for them to sell because it's not landing that well. But it might be tough, but this is what they need to hear. Otherwise, the entire thing goes down the chute, because they're putting out nonsense. Peter Lee's bought us a dram to say welcome back, Roy. And Ralfy, great to see you all again next month. It's going to be so exciting. I hope you've had a great break. Looking forward to Jimmy Legfest too. He's referring to the 28th of September gathering in Glasgow. I'm looking forward to it. More details to follow when I've got a wee bit more time and I don't have Ralfy obviously hosted here. Whiskey Wings as well. Good to see you, buddy. Saying I've got my snorkel gear ready for that loch. Yep. I mean, if you're a drinker, if you're an enthusiast, that you can almost just spectate and keep enjoying whiskey, whatever happens with the dynamics of the market. All the while we comment on it. Pedro in Brazil is here. Thursday evening vPubs are back. Missed you all. I've missed you too, Pedro. Wonderful to have you in, buddy. And Tim, Donnerpass Whiskies bought me a dram to say cheers, Roy and Ralfy. That new Thompson Brothers Buckfast label is hilarious. That's right. They've brought out a Buckfast send up. It's brilliant.
I'm interested. I'm interested to see, Roy. It is so close to the Buckfast label.
I know.
Right?
It's got the grapes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's not even plant that seed, because it's quite clearly sitting on the perfect balance of satire and homage, right? It's just exactly what it is. That new Thompson Brothers Buckfast label is hilarious, says Tim. As an Altmore fanboy, going to be looking for another OSWAs. Wonderful. Can't wait to see what's coming this year. Tim, there's only a few minutes to go before Ralfy and I kind of share with everyone. But let's ask you this question, Ralfy. This is an interesting one for me. Is knowledge necessary for people to enter into this scene and enjoy this thing that we talk about so much, that we love so much? Is knowledge necessary?
What's necessary is a sense of enthusiasm and self-control in moderating the consumption of alcohol, and the enthusiasm in it personally exploring with one's senses as to what good spirits are, good whiskey is. Knowledge will come
incidentally
all the time, from every direction. You will learn from distillery visits, whiskey shows, online forums. You learn from just bringing out your mobile device in a whiskey shop and just doing a brief search in a brand. People are taking photographs of brand. Tell me about this brand. The immediacy of technology is allowing the knowledge which is necessary to enjoy what we love more far, far easier to access, and actually it significantly empower a new generation of whiskey enthusiasts to really know their subject. And by the way, this is doing the whiskey industry a lot of good, because if you actually produce a really good product, quality is its own currency. There will be demand. And even when the passive consumer who's not interested in quality falls away and drinks either gin and tonics or whatever's cheapest in the supermarket on a Saturday night, they'll even downsize once they've had their fingers burnt in social media, and with their employer, whatever. You can't be seen in public intoxicated. Do so in the privacy of your own home. And by the way, we're sending you for a health check, whether you like it or not. We want to know your health condition. Are you insurable? Are you employable?
So what we're talking about here is attitude, perhaps enthusiasm, but moderated enthusiasm, mindful of the fact that we're still involved in a hobby that is consuming ethanol at the end of the day. But knowledge is not a requirement, but
it's a result.
An appropriate attitude. Yeah.
Knowledge is the result of inquiry, enthusiasm, engagement, and yes, of regular controlled consumption.
I have to say, a lot of people can tune into me and agree. And you mentioned that, the fact that we're maybe going to sit back and just bloviate, and some people just get that, or they care, and some people just don't care. Some people come back to give us a second chance, other people not, and that's fine. We all find our audience. But I like to think that that we find a way to make the space welcoming, and try to be mindful, or to help create a space that's mindful of the fact that not everyone is super knowledgeable, and to be welcoming regardless, not expect people to know, but make them feel comfortable immediately when they don't know, for them to say it's okay It's okay to say you don't know or you don't understand. And I'll take my hat off to you, and I'll go back to whatever people say about Ralfy.com, as it was known back in the day, Ralfy stuff. All that as it's gone through the years, Ralfy, your net contribution through providing a very kind of peer-to-peer platform for people to learn about this product, to learn about whiskey, and for it to be in a space where they feel like they're sitting with somebody who is clearly on the side of the consumer.
And clearly grumpy.
So the fact that Brown-Forman have had issues with you, you've had other American companies having a huff with you in the past, you've had people complaining about this, that, and the next thing. The problem is not really you adapting to that. The problem is them adapting to this new kind of environment. Your net contribution to whiskey, I'll go further and I'll even say fantastical things like your net contribution to Scotland and Scottishness and other things too. We could talk about that. But your net contribution to whiskey, I think, is immeasurable.
Do you think so? I try not to think about it, Roy.
Well, I don't. I want you to keep your hubris in check. I want you to be Ralfy. I want you to stay the wee man in Irish Sea. I want you to stay in the bothy, and I want you to keep doing what you're doing. But I think we need to recognise that whatever it is that you found back in 2009 and established, people resonated with it because you grew very, very quickly. And I know that you got a lot of attention from the industry. A lot of people that came in your wake did not get that same. You took the heat from everyone way back. You were kind of being at the head of all of that. Well, I didn't get any of that. By the time I came along, it was a known quantity because of people like you, mostly you being there first. So I would say that it's not about you delivering knowledge. I think it's you've created, and we've all got together to create safe spaces for people to come in. And as you said, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the knowledge just incidentally comes through curiosity and being an inquisitive nature, or asking the questions, or just being involved in a discussion. I think it just comes. I think the takeaway here is that it's hard for us to create comments and content every week that can pitch it to people who have been watching us for a long time and pitch to people who are coming in the beginning. It's quite difficult to get the balance. And I think we need to just relax and just enjoy and just, yeah.
And don't actually think too much about it, because the idea of tapping into one's own hubris and celebrity status, I mean, I've had a good think about this. It's absolutely squirmy when you see the fawning, absolute fakery and platitudes that come out of Hollywood. I think the whole idea of traditional legacy media fame is now a thing of the past. I think it's an absurdism. I think it's generally fake. I think it's covering an awful lot of nasty things in the background, to be honest.
Well, more than anything else, people meet you and I in real life and realize that we're just...
This is important, by the way. This is very, very, very important. So if I'm at a whiskey or even a rum festival, the bunnet will be on, maybe the straw bunnet if it's a rum festival. The jacket will be on so long as it's not too warm. If it's too warm, I'll just have the checked shirt on. And the thing is, we're never off duty, Roy. And it's always a lovely, lovely thing to have a conversation with folk that you may be meeting for the first time. And importantly, ask them what they're drinking. Ask them what they think. Ask folk what they recommend. Because this
Ralfy, are you able to read my questions? Are you reading my questions in advance?
Not really.
Look, this is the last one on this knowledge thing I'm going to ask you. And you've literally kicked it again. You've said, I'm just going to ask you, based on exactly what you've been saying, we know what the answer is. Who knows more, Ralfy? The commenters like us or the community? Yes, just which is it? Who knows more?
The community. Actually, the community knows more, because the commenter is one single person who knows a fair amount, who's sharing experience, but the absorption of that shared experience to empower and enlighten and engage the community with one another and with the industry is frankly more important. And it's working wonderfully well, I have to say. These are such interesting times we're in. There is a whiskey loch. We saw recently Macmura has gone into receivership, the Swedish distillery. It's not the only one. There's a Welsh distillery now suspending production for a year. So essentially it's mothballing itself, perhaps because it's overproduced. I think that we're going to see quite a significant shakedown, not even so much next year, but 2026 and 2027. We're going to see a significant shakedown. And whatever we feel the landscape has changed over the last 15 years, it's going to change even more over the next 5 years. I think we're going to see a new generation of brand ambassador who doesn't want to be called ambassador because the whole title is too loaded. It's got too much baggage with it. They're going to particularly when you've got governments who have successfully banned all advertising of tobacco products. And they're now turning their attention to all legacy media banning posters, newspapers, magazines, the lot of alcohol products, because alcohol's the new tobacco. They're even contemplating high street specialist spirits retailers having to blank out their windows like bookmakers so as that people can't actually see the product they're selling. This is an advance. This is an advanced planning with the bureaucrats. And we
just need to invite them across to a whiskey tasting to knock that into touch.
They'll be too busy.
It's not about digital switch off. It's about education. It's about gentle guidance. It's about understanding how everybody reacts to it differently and putting things in place. It's about not sending things into black markets and to
conclude, Roy, it's about people who've committed to their time, committed to listening to commentators, committed to reading the comments in the forums, and connecting with a few folk and saying, rightio, I've got this money, here's my budget. What do you think I should buy? And there's a bit of a conversation. They go out and they buy, they open the bottle, they've got the glass, they pour the dram, and they say 15 minutes later, well, I tell you what, I'm so glad I bought that, because if I'd never connected and just gone with a punt, right, with the nicest label on the shelf, I could be paying an awful lot of money for something which would be deeply disappointing.
Yep. I think that I hope that we continue to focus, and I'm not talking about Ralfy or Roy or anything. I'm talking about everything that we're doing here on creating spaces where we can make it accessible for people just to come in and relax and feel comfortable, feel part of it, and just incidentally learn about very small measures, small pours, sipping for flavour, and kind of being able to go to bed in a good condition and waking up the next day and feeling not just fine, but feeling empowered, feeling powerful, feeling good, and
knowing how to hydrate. And as we provide spaces for people to come to, people then create their own spaces. They create their own whiskey clubs. They meet up to go to a whiskey festival. They happen to, if they're in Scotland for a visit, they'll all come from different directions to visit maybe a specific distillery where they know they'll get a decent dram, they know they'll get a proper tour, and they know when they've got a serious question for the tour guide, it will actually get answered.
I would suggest to you, Ralfy, that in the last 15 years, in the last getting close on for 20 years now that I've been enjoying whiskey, I think the pool of knowledge has seen a massive swell. and that knowledge is in the distilleries, it's in the tour centres, it's in the visitor centres, it's in the festivals, it's across the table. You know, it's not a requirement. We've established it is not a requirement. You don't need to know everything in order to be able to consume whiskey, to learn about whiskey, and you don't need to know everything about it in order to pour whiskey or whatever. But I have seen the knowledge and the awareness, and we're not talking about, is it okay to add water? Is it okay to add ice and nonsense like that? It's been covered and done to death. People are just accepting of the fact that whiskey is so much about personal consumption. Drink it the way you like. Understand what ice does. Understand what water does. And it's just changed so much. Even in the last 5 or 10 years, it's amazing to see. I think that you nailed it. Of course, the community knows much more than we do because they are many.
Yeah.
Even there are many individuals out there that know more than we do, but it doesn't matter. I don't care how much anybody knows. Are they willing to share the knowledge? Are they willing to guide? Are they willing to use that knowledge in a positive way? Are they willing to get involved in communities and clubs and everything, as you say?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the people who tend to come into these environments tend to be love nothing more than kind of sharing what they've learned about whiskey.
Yeah.
Let's not make it dogma, but just make it as fun as we can. Stevie O, good to see you, Stevie. And I managed to have a great chat with Stevie this week. Loved it. Chuffed to be a part of this whiskey community, Stevie. I'm chuffed to have you as part of it too. We segue beautifully into the fact that you and I, 4 years ago, kicked off a project.
Yeah.
Really threw it backwards and forwards, saying, we're putting our heads above the parapet here. This is tricky. How are we going to do this? How are we going to make it meaningful? How are we going to make it worthwhile? We're just about to kick it off for its 4th year in a row, 2024.
Yeah.
What have we decided we need to try and do a bit more of?
Engage and connect. Tap into the community knowledge.
Exactly.
And the wider, it's really taking the democratic process of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. And now that we have a measure of its shape, of just kind of pushing the boundaries that little bit further to connect and engage with committed, informed whisky enthusiasts who follow our channels, to actually help us to select the final nominations for the whiskies considered in the different categories of the award.
Harness the knowledge up front.
Absolutely.
If we are saying that they know more than we do because it's a huge pool of people, it would take not dozens, but hundreds more online commentators to get anywhere close to matching that. So the last 3 years, it's not that we've ignored it, we've just not fathomed out how to leverage it, right? This year, we're going to attempt to try and leverage it. Shall I drop the link in here?
Please do.
And I don't want everybody to run off and click this link, so I'm going to leave it for a minute. I'm just going to type in here a wee instruction. And I'm going to tell everyone they don't need to run off and do this right now because it's going to be live for the next week. Ralfy and I had a discussion. We are still going to take our place as online commentators. The core contributors are still going to get together and offer our picks for each of the 9 categories of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards for 2024. We're still going to do that. We're still going to then put it out to vote and refine it. That means that we are able to vote for each other's selections and not vote for our own picks.
Yeah.
And hopefully through that process, we end up with a top 6 nominations that we share with you and we put it over to you, and it's the community that decides what the winner is going to be. However, we've worked out that right up front, before we do any of those things, we can involve you. We can harvest the nominations from the community up front from day one. Day one is today. Ralfy and I are announcing the Online Scotch Whisky Awards for 2024 today,
We are.
22nd of August 2024. It starts today.
Yeah.
Normally, you guys just have to go off and wait until we bring you the nominations or something. It's all in the background. This year, we're changing it. We're going to get you involved for 1 week from tonight until Thursday, the 29th at midnight. We're going to put a form out there to the entire community. Anybody that wants to register can send in their picks for the nominations. So they have to pick for each category, from the best value whiskey right through to the best Scotch whiskey, all 9 categories, or they can skip. It's up to them. They can just put one in, all 9, or anywhere in between. And they can put forward their nominations. They've got skin in the game from the start. Then when it goes out to the online commentators, when it goes out to the Roys and the Ralfies and everybody else that's involved up front, they still put forward their nominations like they do every year, but they also have to pick their favoured choices from the community picks too. In the past, they've been allowed to pick 2 of their own. They're only allowed to pick 1 now, and the second one that they pick has to be inspired from the community picks. That's how simple it is. So what we're going to do with this community picks that we've harvested from everyone, we're going to take the top picks from in each category and put that into the nomination suggestions so they can either click or nominate. And that's how we are going to harvest the nominations for 2024. So people, you are invested from day one. That's how we're going to do it. So if you click on this link, like I say, not now, it'll be in the description under this video. We're going to share it publicly on our social medias. It's going to be on the Online Scotch Whisky Awards website. It already is there. Just go to oswa.co.uk to learn more if you want to. And you can click through to this form. It's going to be on the website, and everyone can vote or place forward, their nominations for voting. Now, your nominations might get through to the end and it's more excitement for you, and it might not get through to the end. That's the exact same as it's been for all the commentators over the years. There's no guarantee that what we put forward would ever make it through either. But that is what we're planning to do for this year. So we've changed the dynamic to bring the involvement of the community to the front of the process as well. It gets whittled away, it gets filtered, it gets refined. Ralfy, we can probably count on one hand how many times our nominations has made it through, right? We just have to roll with it. Whatever happens, happens. It tends to be the ones that's part of a zeitgeist, part of popularity, what people are truly loving, accessible, good value.
What we're doing is we're taking the people's choice concept in each category of the OSWAs, and we're bringing it forward to those who are subscribed to the Aquavit and to the Ralfy.com channel as Patreon and active participants in the channel, to just actually help establish the core nominations in each of the categories. So we're basically we're amplifying the democratic process and the transparency of the OSWAs, because this being the 4th year, both Roy and I have now got a familiar, we can work our way around the OSWAs. It's now a thing in its own right, and the opportunity is there, and we just love, as Roy said, we just love to have you actively involved that much sooner.
And I mean, it's almost like, well, people will argue that, well, okay, I don't see there's much point. If I put my nominations in, what's the chances of them actually getting there? Well, you have to understand that that's the exact same sentiment that we've had as people trying to online commentators trying to curate their own messaging from the beginning. It's the same dynamic. And you also, when you go through the process, when you're voting, it's much easier because you just get presented with a list and you click your favorite or you put in something else as part of the people's choice. But when you're given a blank form and you've got to pluck something out of the sky and it can only be one thing, by the way, it's a free text field. You can put in 10 things if you like, but we will only pick the one that you've put in up front. We'll pick your first choice. If you have to go through that process, you appreciate the anxiety, the kind of, the navel glazing, the pencil chewing that goes on with, I'm going to put forward one pick and it has to be a good one. And it does take, I think that through this process, Ralfy, I think the biggest hit I hope to realise out of this is, yes, involving the community, but I think maybe, I don't know how you feel, but inspiring the online commentators as well, reminding them of the stuff that the community is actually enjoying because of the pool of experience and the reach that they have.
It's going to be an exciting OSWAs this year, because there's other things at play here. It's the trifecta situation, which will mean that new brands, new distilleries are going to become more visible, whilst others that have won 3 times in a row are just going to be sitting things out to give their rivals a chance. And as well as doing that, to have the active participation in, for more people involved in the shortlist in each of the nominations, and it's purely where you want to vote, how you decide to vote, if you want to vote in any particular category. It's really just, it's heightening the whole thing and making it so much more proactive.
I think so. I really do think so. And I think it will be interesting to see if it changes anything. But I hope that it might give the sense of embracing and harnessing all of that bi-directional dynamic that we were talking about. People are not just sitting down with the nominations now and just being force-fed what we're giving them. They're actively involved in the curation of that up front as well. They can have a hand in things.
I wouldn't have said being force-fed, because our nominators and other channels have been doing a great job, and by and large, the whiskies that people are voting on in the categories are the whiskies that people expect to see, because they, even though maybe you and I have not voted them or nominated them as within to be in the category, maybe our nominations just were just too rarefied or whatever, or just not the general taste. But it's an exciting little addition that's going to have quite an impact, actually. So let's see where it goes, Roy.
I'm keen to see where it goes. And also you bring up the trifecta, which is really interesting as well, just to let people know that there are categories that are so obviously that they have something or someone so far out in front of everyone else on a global platform like the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, that it just means that they're just going to keep winning until something else comes along, which might take a bit longer than the passage of a single year. We've seen R&10 3 years in a row take Best Value Whisky. We saw Signatory Vintage 3 years in a row take the Best Independent Bottler. We saw Ardnamurchan take the Best New Distillery 3 years in a row. And we saw Springbank take the Best Distillery 3 years in a row. To punish them for their success is to break the OSWAs and break what it actually stands for. We need to find ways to celebrate that success. So we will invite all of them forward to accept an automatic 3 years in a row award. And then while they accept that award, graciously read out who the winner is for that category while they were spectating on that category.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to bob to the top of the new distilleries now that Ardnamurchan's beyond 10 years old. Ardnamurchan's in the big playing field now with everyone else.
Yeah.
Who's going to win Best Distillery with Springbank not in the mix? It's going to be interesting to see what takes the Best Value Whisky, and super interesting who's going to take the Best Independent Bottler. It's different days. 2024 is not that different from 2023, Ralfy, but it's very different from 2021, I think, when we started. And that's what's going to be interesting for me. Shall I share some dates for everyone?
Please do.
So this is your Save the Dates slide, just to let you know the shape of the structure of everything. You can work out where you're going to be when all this is happening. I hope that you have the ability to get involved. The first thing that's happening right now, I've pinned it in the live chat. I will put it under the video later. There is a live link there available. There's a form that is busy collecting in the background in real time. And if I click over to the form now, I can have a wee look to see what's been happening there. And of course, and we're knocking on for 200. 200 people have registered their thoughts already. Now, listen, it doesn't matter if you've just gone in and you've gone gung-ho and you've plugged in. It doesn't matter what you've plugged in, because you have the ability to come back anytime in the next week, up until Thursday midnight next week on the 29th. You can edit your responses. It's part of the dynamics of the OSWA. We know you need the ability to change your mind. We know what whiskey is about. We know what whiskey is like, mood, moment, everything. Maybe you've forgotten something. You can come back and change your mind. But by all means, register and get your nominations in now. Come back and change it if it's niggling. That's happening from right now for the next week. Then on September 14th, Ralfy and I will be together. That's not far away, Ralfy. What is that? It's kind of 3-4 weeks away.
It's not far.
We'll have taken all the community suggestions for nominations. We'll have put them into the kind of machine, into the mechanisms of everything, mixed them up with the commentators' recommendations for nominations, put it out to a refinement vote. That'll give us a top 6. We'll share with you what's been produced from that top 6 come September 14th, the nominations. And for me, Ralfy, this is the most exciting thing. It's great to get together with everyone out there that's won something. It's great to raise a glass and congratulate people and announce who the winners are. It's good fun. But the real value for the community, I believe, is in the nominations show, because they're getting 6 solid recommendations for each of the categories. Then the public vote will then be open as soon as that nominations show closes. You'll be able to go in and place your own votes and decide what you think should be winning for each of the categories. And this year, we'll keep that open for 5 full weeks. 5 weeks from 14th of September to 20th of October. You can go in and place your votes, then go back and edit them. Change your mind because you've tried some more things, because you've been to a bar, because you've done some sample swaps, because you've picked up a bottle of something. And you can go back and change your mind. Then from the 20th of October, there'll be about 2 weeks for Ralfy and I to do all the data crunching with our helpers in the background, Rob and Chuck in the background, to work out what the winners are going to be, notify the winners, work out who's going to come on and who's going to accept the prizes and all of these things. And finally, the awards ceremony. It's a quite a big thing to call it a ceremony, right? But we've called it that in the past, so hopefully it's okay.
It is a ceremony.
It's a ceremony. We celebrate the thing, right? And Saturday, the 2nd of November at 6 p.m. Both Saturday shows, the nomination show and the winners show on the 2nd of November, both go out at 6 p.m. BST, British Standard Time, and we'll share all the winners then. So take a wee screenshot, whatever you have to do. Come back here and pause the video, whatever you have to do. Go to oswa.co.uk where you can find out lots and lots more about the mechanics, about how things work. The contributors, obviously right now, the contributors that are live are last year's. Most of the site's been updated, and as soon as we refine and decide all the contributors going forward, that'll be updated too. Keep a note on oswa.co.uk for all that you need to know. On Ralfy's channel, on my channel here, we'll constantly be talking about the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Ralfy and I have been very careful over the years to be careful about what we talk in the intervening weeks where things are being voted for. So we try not to review the things that have been nominated. But right now it's free reign. Ralfy and I can talk about anything we want to do because we don't know what's going to be nominated. But once the nominations are formulated, we try and be careful for a few weeks, try not to give too much away, and just let it run in the background. That's how it's going to work. I hope that that's interesting, and I hope that it helps people get a wee bit more involved. Not envying whoever has to sift through this, says Doodle the Dram. Thank you for your consideration, my friend. Rick Johnson is saying 10 a.m. California time. Absolutely, buddy, but it's on the weekend. I hope it works out for you, Rick. And Daniel Williams is saying, question 2, is that regarding public vote? Question 2? What does Daniel mean by question 2? I'm not sure. Public vote is from the nomination show ending 14th of September until the 20th of October. So there you go. Ian Bruce has bought us a dram, Ralfy, from Australia. Glad to see the community back after the summer break. I'll raise a glass tonight after work. Ian, thank you very much for dropping in and buying us a wee dram. I hope you're picking this up on the replay, and I hope you do have that dram in hand, buddy. Thank you for your generosity. Cheers.
Cheers.
How do we feel about the OSWAs in its fourth year, Ralfy? How long do we think we're going to have to go before we can really measure whether it's having a valuable impact, whether people actually care about it or not? How are we feeling come year 4? I know how I'm feeling, but I'm interested in how you're feeling about it all.
I'm looking at the viewing figures, and I'm looking at the surrounding ambient conversation in which OSWAs gets mentioned. And it's very encouraging, because an awful lot of the online community can relate to it, because it isn't a traditional award system like the International Wines and Spirits Award. This is a whole different model. It has a whole different motivation behind it. And although traditional awards certainly have their place, and they certainly work in terms of promotion and advertising for the winners, I think there is a certain amount of fatigue towards these awards by more informed whiskey enthusiasts who actually subscribe to the principles of what the OSWA sets out to do, and that is to highlight as a one-stop showcase as to what are the best whiskies, what is on people's radars, what do people vote for, and certainly for someone getting into whiskey, if they want to start a whiskey collection of their first dozen bottles, they can't go wrong. They could go to the OSWAs. They can look at the winners, they look at the price and say, I'm prepared to pay for that. And they've got a ready-to-go, top quality, and this is the important part, top quality whiskey collection, which is then their responsibility to enhance further and not to diminish by getting lazy and just going for brands.
And this is a each category has 6 solid recommendations that is community endorsed. Community endorsed. You know, it's not ever going to be a perfect model, because I don't think a perfect model exists, Ralfy. But every time we've received kind of somebody pointing out often what we've already kind of worked out ourselves, but sometimes it's really cool to get feedback and things that we haven't worked out ourselves. But what we always struggle with is what's the better alternative.
Yeah.
And that's the real challenge, is how to make it better, how to make it. So I think that we've got hopefully the right formula, is that rather than kind of try and reinvent everything every year, just wee tweaks, just wee tightenings of mechanisms, and kind of trying slightly different things. Trifecta is going to be new for this year. I think that's going to work well. Hopefully it's going to work well. It's going to be certainly interesting, and involving the community from the get-go is going to be interesting for us as well.
In terms of feedback, Roy, I think that we'll look at the distilleries who have won. Springbank, Ardnamurchan, Signatory have won, and that in their public spaces, they're proudly presenting their OSWA certificates. They're up in the wall for people to see, and they know, and I've had the feedback in this, people visiting Springbank and Ardnamurchan, they see the OSWA certificates and they know what they are.
For anyone who's going to stay and hang around for us for the quiz at the end, I've got a lovely wee image that Sabrina sent me from Springbank, and it's not part of the quiz questions or whatever. It's in there as a wee bonus for you to see. I was going to make a question about it, but it was far too obvious. And exactly what Ralfy's saying there, you're going to be able to see an image. It's just fantastic to see these very, very humble, just little certificates printed out with a gold sticker on it, a wee kind of celebrate, a signature, and they're hanging it up in their distilleries, because it's a humble thing, but it represents the output from every single person who took the time out to vote.
It represents momentum. That's what it represents. A zeitgeist and a momentum of this moment in time. And sure, we've had winners of the OSWAs, who don't want to like really acknowledge it. But that's real life. That's the real world. That is the landscape. And frankly, we're comfortable with it.
And we love the fact that the ones who sometimes say nothing speak much, much louder by saying nothing. They make the messaging very obvious. It's not really, they don't really care. It's not part of their thing. Fantastic. Ralfy, I hinted there quickly. We're getting on an hour 49. We've done quite well tonight, considering it's you and I, right? I don't think we're known for being succinct, right, buddy? Anyway.
We're known for chuntering on a bit, aren't we? Yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay. I think that I always give the option for the guest, if they want to stay for the quiz at the end.
How could I refuse?
When the topic is knowledge, right?
And my permanent marker for my A's, B's, and C's. I'm at the ready, Roy. I'm dreading this moment because it's always this. So long as it's not a Menno quiz, that.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this to you, because I prepared the quiz. I started it yesterday, and I tuned it up a wee bit today. I think it was good to go, and I looked at it and I went, "Would I want to take this quiz?" And I looked at it and I thought, "No, this is tough." And then I thought, I would be disingenuous if I lowballed it because Ralfy's coming on, right? Especially when we are talking about knowledge, it's almost we should design the quiz to make it obvious that the community are more knowledgeable than what we are.
Oh, I'm getting nervous now.
So it is not going to be an easy quiz, Ralfy. Usually I've been very, very kind to you and I've put in a few Ralfy themed questions, but I forgot that was a dynamic. So there might only be one Ralfy question in the entire quiz tonight. Yeah,
anyone's a bonus and will help.
That's right. Listen, buddy, participation is all of it. We all continue to learn from these things. We take wee nuggets away from it. The pass mark is 5 out of 10, but it doesn't matter. You're only playing against yourself. It's only for fun, and you only share your score if you want to. Well, everyone except Ralfy, who's playing along in real time, and he kind of has to. But anyway,
I have to, yes, I will.
Listen, thanks to everyone. I'm sorry that tonight I didn't get much chance to hang out with you. I have missed you over the summer break. Next week is a solo session with just me, and there'll be a chance for me to have much more interaction with all of you guys tuning in. In the meantime, good luck with the quiz. Please hang out for a wee bit longer and have a bit of fun with us. Just play it quietly in the background if you want to. Ralfy's already nervous. That makes me quite happy. It means that he's taking it seriously. Good luck, everyone.
I didn't say that.
Good luck. Question 1. This is not going to be an easy one tonight, but we start off with, which of these images appears on the cover of one of Ralfy's 3 published books? We're looking for an image that's appeared on one of Ralfy's 3 published books. A, Ralfy in a top hat. B, Ralfy in a pub. Or C, Ralfy sitting in his bothy. Which of those appears as an image on one of Ralfy's published books? Whiskey 101, Nick is saying, if it's too tough, you can just turn around and head back to Spain. Only joking. This is how we get knowledge, right? Well, okay, Nick. Thank you, buddy. Dave Barnes is saying, if I get half of Ralfy's score, I'll go to bed happy. There you go, Dave. Fantastic. That's something to aim for. There actually might be more than one Ralfy themed question in the quiz tonight, now that I remember it.
Uh-oh.
How are you feeling about this one, Ralfy? You feeling confident?
Oh, yes. I'm feeling quietly confident because I've got the 3 books sitting in the shelf beside me, Roy. So this is an absolute...
As have I. Now, I'm wondering how many of these are signed. Oh, that one is signed. Oh, that one is signed. I think I've gifted all the unsigned ones, and I've kept the signed ones for me. And these are relatively unthumbed.
You mean what you're saying is you've not even read them then?
Well, I've read and given away the ones that I made all the wee kind of donkey ears and marks on and things like that. What I'm basically admitting to is that I'm gonna sell these off one day.
Ah, fair
So I'm trying
play.
to keep them as good condition as possible. Ralphie, go ahead, tell us.
It happens to J.K. Rowling. I've just got to take it on the chin.
What picture appears on one of your published books? Top Hat, Pub, or Bothy?
On the third book, Ralfy in a top hat. In the second book, Ralfy in the bon accord. And in the first book, Ralfy in the bothy. So in fact,
Superb.
all three are correct. Nobody has lost a mark in this first question.
Nobody goes home from the vPub tonight on a donut. Nobody gets a 0. Question 2, not as easy. Which of these Diageo releases features a current distiller's edition? Now, we know that Diageo tends to release a core range product, but they also have an extra maturation. As an example, Lagavulin Distiller's Edition has a PX, Pedro Jimenez, finish to their 16-year-old for their Distiller's Edition. But which of these Diageo releases features a current Distiller's Edition? A. Colila, B. Cardew, or C. Talisker? Which of those features a current Distiller's Edition? It's been a long time since we've purchased any Diageo Distiller's Editions, I suspect, Ralphie, right?
Actually, recently I got a Fishiel Kulila at auction. Because, of course, the Fishiel bottlings are no longer selling out at Fishiel.
And they're no longer profitable on the secondary either.
No, they're not. I actually got the bottle for £95, and the original retail price at Fishiel was £165.
Good work.
Thank you. It was a 15-year-old Kalila that had 12 years of maturation in it and had a little bit of extra fusile notes in the top from some heavily charred casks. Not exactly.
Are we going to see a Ralphie review?
I've done a Ralphie review, but
it's already been out.
But fired up. I'll be bottling under the Ralfy, my own Ralfy.com in November. I will be bottling. I have a cask of Kulila sitting waiting. It's a 9-year-old Kulila, and it's what an independent bottling should be: soft, oily, languid, relaxed, and the essential pittiness is. It's not harsh. It's not imposed. It's almost it is more. It's more coy. Don't get me wrong. There comes a point where we can get too critical of competent whiskey, Roy, and it gets increasingly easy to find fault when you're getting too damn fussy.
That's right.
I am.
That's right. I'm glad you're saying that, and I'm glad you're thinking that way.
I'm thinking this way. I'm thinking, am I getting too harsh here? But I tell you what, it comes down to the money. You're looking at £165, and people going to Fishiel for the ferry, the cost of transportation, the cost of accommodation. It's an expensive gig to get to. And
somebody's done it and just lost 70 quid.
Unfortunately, yes.
Or more.
Yeah, and that's a real shame, because see if the quality was in the bottle, I doubt that would have happened. Anyway,
let's see the value. What's your answer for this one, Ralphie? Which of these has a distiller's edition?
Seeing as I'm not looking at any of the official bottling distiller's editions at the moment, I've just gone for a punt and said C, Talisker.
Spot on, but if you'd said Kalila, you'd also have been right as well.
Oh,
and the knowledgeable whiskey crowd got it absolutely spot on. I don't think I clocked a B scrolling up at any point in time. Cardew is the only one that does not. They have plenty of other non-age statements and things like that. And this is based on malts.com, which its website was very, very glitchy this week. They've had a revamp and I don't think it's worked out, but it's both £65 Kalila and Talisker distiller editions. Still a bit pricey, but not as pricey as you might imagine with the Diageo crazy prices of recent. Anyway, question 3. Pernod Ricard are making investments in Speyside with huge expansion plans at Aberlour, and which other distillery owned by them? Pernod Ricard are making huge investments in Speyside with huge expansion plans at Aberlour, and which other distillery? Is it A, Altmore, B, Scapa, or C, Milton Duff? Please read the questions. Falsgraf is saying, I said not B. Good man. Good man, Klaus. It's good to see you in, buddy. Andy Pierce is here. Fantastic. Rob Smith is too. Kyle Taylor, George P. Lachlan McKenzie, Philip Wagner. Where's Roy? Roy Overmere in Norway. Make a Dram Decision is here. It's just great to see all the familiar names. Simone in New Zealand. I always get guilty for the people that I don't pick up. Bruce Bernard is here. Good to see you. Drinks Whiskey is here. How are you keeping, my friend? Good to have you. Good to see your content out there as well. I hope we can have you involved in the OSWAs this year if it's a thing that you're interested in. I think you would very much be a valuable addition to it. Whiskey@aquavitae.com. Please send me an email if you're interested. Fernando's saying almost a freebie this one. Go ahead. Ralfy, what are you guessing?
Rightio. I'm going to say C, Milton Duff, because I don't keep up with this sort of news, but I do know that Milton Duff has got room for expansion, and is one of the absolute foundation styles for the Buchanan's blend. And really, any expansion of any single malt distillery will be for their blends, not for the malts.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I can tell you that Altmore is a Speyside distillery, but it is owned by Dewars. Scapa is in Orkney, so it can't be Altmore or Scapa. It is absolutely Milton Duff. If everything goes ahead with that expansion and they add 10 million litres onto the 5 to 6 million that they already are, Milton Duff will become the third largest malt distillery in Scotland. Question 4, with Ralfy on a full house so far. Mackmyra announced bankruptcy this week. But when was the Swedish distillery originally founded? Was Mackmyra founded in A, the 1990s, B, the 2000s, or C, the 2010s? I do not think that Mackmyra will languish too long. I know it's the first and everybody's kind of Chicken Little in the whole thing. The sky is falling. We need to go off and talk to the king about what to do. I think we just need to let it play out. They've got a lot of whiskey on hand. I think that their strategy has not been particularly cohesive. I think they missed out on a core range. Somebody just look at what Ardnamurchan are doing. It just, if they're stuck, if they're rudderless, if they need inspiration, and they find that they can't do a Springbank, look at Ardnamurchan, for goodness sake. Look at Arran. Look at Arran. Anyway, sorry. Ralfy, Mackmyra, looking for new owners, looking for a rescue boat, right?
Yeah. They've not been in the go that long, Roy. I'm saying 2010s, but it could be, it's either B or C. It's certainly not A.
Well, maybe there's an argument. There should have been a wee banana skin on this one, Ralfy.
All right, here we go.
Shocked why it's in the quiz at the end. I was shocked to be reminded that Mackmyra was founded in 1999.
No way.
Incredible. Now, the vertical distillery that they produce from today, no, that was not 1999. But the original distillery and the founding of Mackmyra, 1999. I should have put a banana skin in there. I should have been, but I was floored when I read it. It's incredible. But there you have it. Here's the image that I promised you. Ralfy, tell us what wall this is. Do you recognize it?
A Springbank.
Yeah. Now, it used to be that they had the recertificate on the bar there, but they've since been mopping up. 2022, they won another one. 2023, you'll remember last year, they got Best Blended Malt, they got Best Scotch Whisky, and Best Distillery for the third year in a row. So we've got the 2021, 2022 there on the left, and on the right, we've got their 3 their sweep for 2023.
Could,
It's
could I
just
just
wonderful to see.
could I just jump in here, Roy, and say that just recently the Bon Accord in North Street in Glasgow sold the last drop of one of the 2 bottles that Springbank supplied to Ralfy.com to celebrate 1,000 reviews. It was 20-year-old cask Springbank. It was selling for £100 a dram, so it wasn't going to sell that quickly. And it was really appealing to the genuine Springbank enthusiast that wanted a bottle in a bar that they couldn't get anywhere else. And the £2,000 raised gone to Drumchapel Food Bank, and it's been supporting families over the summer. It's an independent food bank, so they're autonomous. They're not so politically manipulated, and they really have. They do such important work within the community. So a big thank you to Springbank for allowing me to host that bottle at the Bon Accord. I even got to try it myself, a wee taster. Thomas bought me a dram. He paid for 1 dram and we split it 2 ways. And
so you got to try it yourself.
So
Well, I'm going to raise a glass to say thank you to all of those people involved as well, Ralfy, absolutely. But also to say thank you to you for coming up with such a concept and for all the money going to charity as well. Well done, Ralfy, and congrats to the food bank as well.
Well, thanks very much, Roy. But it's really it's creating a nice, authentic, virtuous circle where the distillery, they get some really useful promotion out of it. The one distillery who I'm confident about connecting with that's going to handle it properly is Springbank. And we have done it before when I celebrated 10 years. And that worked really well. So I think because it's worked that time round, they were happy to do it again. And I think it's worth just reminding ourselves that, you know, the online community are not strangers to all the whiskey industry. We may feel that we are treated given the silent treatment by the big corporations, but there are other distilleries who totally relate to what we're doing and really appreciate their product being appreciated. And hence the signatory, for example, Springbank, Isle of Arran, still an firmly established distillery, are celebrating 30 years now, shortly. Yep. And what was their secret sauce? What was their magic formula? Put out a really nice 10-year-old whiskey at a decent price and then maintain the consistency, bottling after bottling, so that people who don't have a lot of money to spend still have access to a decent single malt. And by the way, they're making a profit in the top of that. They are making
put out an anchor, put out a way for people to connect with you and understand you,
an anchor,
and build around that. Laphroaig 10, look at Laphroaig 10 for decades and decades and decades. No comment on Laphroaig 10 of 2024, of course.
Oh, Roy. Ouch.
Well, it's been an amazing kingpin, a linchpin, sorry, for them. It's been an amazing anchor for them. So absolutely. I just wanted to share that image from Sabrina, who's traveling around. She sent that to me, and I thought I'd like to, given the theme of tonight's show, I wanted to share that some producers, I know that if I walked into Arran, if I walked into Ardnamurchan, if I walked into other places, we would see it hanging on the wall as well. Ralfy, here's a bar, lots of bar stools around it, but the shape of this bar is quite unique. What we've got here is we've got a mash tun. We've got a mash tun that's been repurposed, a copper top mash tun, into a bar at Blair Athol Distillery in the Southern Highlands.
Right.
So I've given something away there, but I'm going to ask the community, the knowledgeable community, where is that mash tun originally from? It's been repurposed from A, Clynelish, B, Glenord, or C, Port Ellen. if you take a trip up the A9, it's very easy to visit. It used to be that you could go up and visit Edredale. It's super sad that we can't do that anymore. No visitor centre there. One of the biggest losses there was just how pretty a wee cottage distillery that was. And they had a fantastic shop selection for signatory vintage as well.
Yeah.
Huge loss, a huge loss. But Blair Athol is also there as well. Just a wee slight diversion off the beaten track of the A9. Nip in, Diageo obviously, but lots of flora and faunas on the shelf, sometimes a wee cheeky distillery exclusive. But they've got this tasting bar here, and it's a repurposed mash tun from either Clynelish, Glenord, or Port Ellen. Knowledgeable whiskey crowd swinging in here, answering, but I think this is splitting the crowd. I wonder if Graham Fraser's in here tonight. It's his image. He shared the picture with us. Maybe a banana skin on this one. Ralfy, what do you think? Were you guessing on this one?
I'm guessing in this one because it's a large washback from a large distillery. It would never that's too big for Port Ellen. Clynelish isn't that big. I'm saying Glenord. Glenord's by far the biggest distillery, so I'm saying B.
It is actually a product of the refurbishment that happened at Clynelish.
Oh, wrong
That's
again.
the old mash tun from Clynelish. I loved the process of elimination you tried to go through there. Loved it.
Yeah.
If it's any consolation, that threw the chat for a wobbler as well. Lots of people were picking Port Ellen for that one, incredibly so. It's fairly recent edition. I think it was about 6 or 8 years ago that went in. It's not been in for a long time. But yeah, you can go in and you can have a wee seat and a dram at that place at Blair Athol. Anyway, question 6. In August of 2010, review number 145, it was a comparison video. Ralfy threw whiskey over ice. What kind of whiskey was it? Now, I'm asking you to hark back into the memory banks here, buddy. Keep your powder dry, keep quiet if you've got this one. But in 2010, full 14 years ago now, you poured whiskey over ice. What was it? Was it A, an entry-level blend, B, a supermarket own-label malt, or was it C, a premium single cask malt?
Do you know, I can't remember. It would have to be. I would never put. I don't have any memory of putting a single malt over ice. If I was putting anything over ice, it would be a standard proprietary blend. But I'm just wondering, supermarket. I mean, I have reviewed supermarket blends. I've reviewed.
Can I share? This was the first video I watched of yours, so I can mark when I started watching Ralfy. Summer 2010, and I watched you do this.
Right, I'm going to go A, an entry-level blend. I wouldn't do a single cask malt, no chance.
I may be wrong. I think you might have done this twice, but I'll talk to you about it in a second.
Right, that's spoilers now. Yeah, I know which one it is, so I'm right.
It was an entry-level blend. It was Johnny Walker Red.
Yeah.
Now, did you also do it when you were sitting outside in the snow?
When I was outside in the snow, that was Lagavulin Distillers Edition.
Ah, okay.
Right.
And you took a handful and just dropped it in.
I put a little bit of snow in the Lagavulin just as a novelty.
Yeah.
And that's a rare one, by the way.
Well, here's a wee image from it. Here you go.
There we go. Yeah, I recognise those ice cubes. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but this evening, my second little partner dram has a contrast to the Glencairn I'm having. It's a 1970s red label, which I bought as a little job lot at auction a few years ago. And I tell you what, it's really tasty stuff. It's absolutely delightful.
Can I join you?
It's nectar of the gods. It really is.
Look, our labels are almost identical.
Can I share a wee story?
The patina on each is similar as well.
I'll tell you a wee story, Roy, if you've got time.
Of course.
I was invited at one point to be a malt maniac, which I accepted because Jan de Hovel was still, organising it then. Shortly after he'd had enough and quit. But I was invited to join other malt maniacs to be guests of Diageo. And this was one of the very, very rare occasions that I actually accepted any hospitality, because I wasn't doing so as Ralfy.com. I was doing so as a malt maniac.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Diageo were very hospitable. They were very professional about the tour. It was just a couple of nights driving us to Rose Isle Distillery, which was fascinating to see. And just, I had this table with all the new make spirit from all the different distilleries. So while everybody else was wandering off, Charlie McLean and I were just nosing away at these new make spirits. And I have to say, Charlie is so professional, because I was trying to catch his eye to kind of, critique the sanitized makes, right? But he wouldn't. He was having none of it. He was keeping an absolutely level keel profile as
Poker
a
face.
professional whiskey writer. He was taking none of it, which was very commendable. And we ended up at the Diageo headquarters, where we had a wee bit of a lunch provided, and I'd given Nick Morgan, who was hosting the tour. He was Dr. Dick Morgan, was the kind of head of outreach and communication. Then I said, I've actually brought a bottle of your own whiskey back to you, if you when we want to share it, because I don't want to just kind of hand it out in the bus. And it was a bottle of 1960s Johnny Walker Red Label. So he got it poured out and he handed the glasses out to all the malt maniacs. And of course, this is a 1960s Red Label, so they're thinking it's a malt. They would never in a month of Sundays have thought it was a Johnny Walker Red Label.
But how elegant and delicious is that wee glass that you've got in your hand right now?
It's superb. It's absolutely superb, because the corn, the grain part component, probably coming from North British, or it's
maybe back in the day they might have been able to handle corn as well. What ABV is your bottle, Ralfy? It's maybe 40%. On the back. Sorry?
It's 40%.
Well, that's going to be an interesting comparison. Look.
43. Yeah, you got the German version.
Yeah, it's an export bottle.
Yeah. This is the very early stage of barcodes.
Oh, it would have been, yeah. Wow.
When there was still a rarity.
It's just lovely. It's been a while since I've sipped that. What a nice thing to do. Thing to do.
So exquisite. So, this is, when you look at the malt maniacs and the access to all these unicorn single malts that they had, that to kind of have something as humble as an old red Johnny Walker Red Label, it just completely spun their palate. And I tell you what, it was lovely to see the kind of the surprise and the reaction. So it was a nice little part of, I have to say, a lovely, lovely bunch of guys. I'm really not sure where the Malt Maniacs are at now. The Malt Maniacs Awards, they were certainly the kind of the first online awards kind of system. But I think that they tended to naturally, they gravitate towards the rare single cask unobtainiums.
But it was of its time, though.
But it definitely was of its time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I noticed that the Malt Maniacs page really hasn't been updated substantially for quite a long time now. So I just wonder if it's just sort of fizzled out or whatever. But
well,
it was also,
websites quickly became overtaken by forums, quickly became overtaken by social media feeds,
yeah,
quickly became overtaken by arguably eh, eh,
exactly.
different communities, smaller groups and chats in the background before, and then video, of course, came along as well. So they've been through quite a more. I have to say, I have to pass on my regards. Serge Valentine, I met him very
Yeah,
recently, and
yeah.
he interrupted the flow of discussion, Ralfy,
Uh-huh.
to interrupt and say, "Oh, by the way, I mean to ask, how is Ralfy?" I said, "Ralphie's fine. He's good. I'll be speaking to him soon." He said, "When you speak to him,
Hmm.
please send him my warm regards."
Well, he's
Eh,
an absolute gentleman.
well, I've not only have I done it, but I've done it live on air as well.
There you go. In fact,
So
it was the.
he still thinks about you. He's thinking about you, and he wanted to
Well,
pass
I
on
mean,
his
you
regards.
got to hand it to Serge and to Angus as well, because they have sustained one of the most consistent, disciplined, and organised libraries of whiskey experience that's ever existed now. And
I
a
back
phenomenal
back
achievement.
before there was video, back before
Yeah.
there was forums.
Hmm.
The only thing we had was the Malt Maniacs and the beginnings of Whiskey Fun, right?
Whiskey fun, yeah.
That was kind of a resource way back in the day. It's almost like we've come full circle to the beginning. It's incredible. It's
Mhm.
and it's quite nice. You look back a wee bit and there's a wee bit of nostalgia that flickers, right?
Yeah. In
Anyway, I
fact,
wonder how Angus and
the,
Serge
in, sorry,
would do.
the interview with Serge, which exists on my channel, was actually recorded when we had the meeting of the Malt Maniacs. So I've got an interview with Serge there in the archives. But sorry, you were saying about Angus, Mr. Whiskey Sponge.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the fact that we mentioned at the start of the thing. We talked about the grind, and we don't always mean grind as in it's really hard and you've just got to kind of, but the consistency. You just keep building, you keep building, you keep building, and you build a thing, and if it resonates, you keep building the thing, you keep at it, you stick at it. I don't think anyone's stuck at it. If we talk about the video, no, you're peerless, Ralphie. You are. If we talk about the whiskey grind, I don't think anybody can touch Serge, right? He's 22 years now, 23
Yeah,
years, 21, 23 years.
absolutely.
It's and the amount of whiskies that's been through his platform, I don't know what it's going to take in order to beat that. I really don't. So,
It's going to
I
be
listen. Here's to old friendships,
absolutely.
here's to the
All right,
grind,
fine.
and everybody that contributes to this amazing thing. I've got somebody suggesting, Lowlander is saying that it might be nice if I got Serge on. Well, you
It
might
would.
know me a wee bit better than that, Lowlander. I tend to bully these people into attending, so it might happen yet. Ralphie, well done. We're on
Thank
to
you.
question 7, something that might help you here. Which of these entries will be awarded a trifecta award in this year's OSWAs, and therefore they cannot appear in the nominations? A. Wild Turkey Rare Breed. B. Independent Bottler, Signatory Vintage. Or C. Distillery, Ardnamurchan. Which of these entries will be given a trifecta award this year, which means that they can't appear in the nominations this year because they're accepting their trifecta? A. Wild Turkey Rare Breed. B. Signatory Vintage as an independent bottler. Or C. Ardnamurchan Distillery.
Silence as everybody's thinking.
It is. I've got a banana skin emoji here
Yeah,
and an asshat emoji here.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm being quite tricky. I'm being quite brutal. If we talk about knowledge in our community, we have to demonstrate it. If somebody's going to score a 9, even an 8 tonight is going to be a big score. A 9 or, my goodness, a 10 out of 10, it's going to
Yeah.
have to be earned. Which of these entries is not going to appear because they've taken a trifecta? Ralfy, do your best.
A plus B plus C, all three.
Oh, you think all three?
Yeah.
I can tell you, Wild Turkey Rare Breed has yet to earn a trifecta. It has not earned a trifecta yet. Ardnamurchan Distillery has earned a trifecta, but it can still appear as Ardnamurchan Distillery in the best distillery category, whereas Signatory Vintage, through its trifecta, means that it's out. There may be an expression in best whiskey, best value whiskey, best something else. It might appear as an expression in a different category, but as an independent bottler, it cannot appear. Ardnamurchan can, and Wild Turkey is still very much in the race.
Right. Does that mean because I put B, I can get it?
It's you can take care of your own score. You're only playing against
That's
the rules of the vPub. It's the rules.
It's the rules, so no, I can't.
Quiz at the end. Whiskey Weekend Ram Harrow's saying I paid attention tonight. Fernando changed just in time. Rob Smith, Hell's Wid, Ian Bruce, all clinging on to their 7 out of 7 alongside Harrow. Fantastic. I'm sure there's a few more in the background as well as we roll into question 8. Ralfy, by visiting which of these are tough questions. My goodness, Roy, what are you thinking? By visiting which of these worm tub distilleries might you also be able to look at drum maltings?
Oh, here we go.
Please note the banana skin. A, Craigellachie. B, Glenord. C, Speyburn. Now, nothing to do with visitor centres or anything like that, or tours or what's provided. I'm just suggesting that by visiting any of those distilleries, which one of them offers you the ability to see an operational worm tub and drum maltings? Or drum maltings and an operational worm tub. The community is just, I cannot fox them. I cannot fox them. It's not easy. It's not easy to fox them. What do we think, Ralfy?
A, Craigellachie.
You've nailed the Worm Tub Distillery, definitely. Glenord. Glenord has drum maltings, but they do not have worm tub condensers. Speyburn has both.
Oh, damn. Damn.
The banana skin, Ralfy, the reason that you've been caught out is because the drum maltings are defunct. They've not been used in decades, but they're still installed and on site. I just want to put a
why didn't they email me with that information, Roy?
Well, funny you should say that, like you're reading my mind again.
Here.
This was emailed to me just a week ago from Cask Whisky.
Is it?
KASK, Cask Whisky. I'm looking forward to the Pattison book that Justine's putting together coming out. I can't wait for it to come out. Everything to do with the Pattison brothers. She's huge. The whiskey knowledge that Justine has over Leith and Leith whiskey and its history and things. But she put out an email this week, and there was an image there of the Speyburn drum maltings, and the condition that they were in to look at in that image was compelling to me. It was something that I have to go and see. There we go. Question 9. Told you it would be a tough one. In 1991, Allied Distillers back in the day copied the concept from United Distillers, the original Diageo of the 1980s and 90s. They copied the idea of their classic malts, and they released their own series of single malts. But what did Allied Distillers call their series? A, they called it the Secret Malts. B, they called it the Caledonian Malts. Or C, they called it the Hidden Malts. I have to say that I was aware of this. I knew that it existed, but I found an image that I'm going to share with everyone today, and it's just, I don't recognize a single bottle. despite my obsession with antique bottles and things, and I didn't recognize any of these, so there cannot be many of them around. This is a delicious wee pour, this Johnny Walker Red Label, Ralfy.
Isn't it delightful? It's so nostalgic.
Yeah.
For a moment we never even observed.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Absolutely true. If we were alive, we weren't allowed to drink at the time, right?
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, what do we think, buddy?
See, hidden malts.
Hidden malts from Ralfy. The very, very knowledgeable lounge, knowledgeable whiskey community are going for B Caledonian malts, the majority of them, the vast majority.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Caledonian malts is what Ally called them. Listen, the reason that you got that, wait till you see these bottles. Look. You recognize any of these?
Oh, you saw them cropping up the auctions a while back.
Milton, Duff, Glenburgie, Glencadam, Imperial, Glentochers, and Tormore. Now, only 3 of those remain within, Allied, which through various chopping and slicing and dissection, a lot of it's ended up under Pernod Ricard's stewardship. But Milton Duff is still there, Glenburgie is still there, and Glentochers. Glencadam is Angus Dundee. Imperial is gone. Dalmonic is built on top of that now, owned by Pernod Ricard. And Tormore is now sold to Elixir. I just look at these labels and I just don't recognize them, but something to look. Notice that they're all screw top, Ralfy.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with the screw top.
No, from the early 90s, right? In fact, the Johnny Walker Red Label that we're enjoying so much right now, screw top, right?
Yeah. I was chatting to Sukhinder Singh, who's the new proprietor of Tormore Distillery, and I can just tell by the enthusiasm. He's a genuine whiskey enthusiast. He still has that.
Oh, he's a geek. He's a geek.
He's an absolute geek.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful Edwardian 1930s sort of stoic industrial style of art deco.
It's unique, absolutely unique amongst distilleries.
It's completely off people's radars. But what what Sukhinder was really kind of emphasizing in our conversation was that his plans are really that to try and go for that old style of single style of cask maturation for the full length of the journey, and no finishes type style. And I think he's absolutely onto something with that. And I think that if any of us were to say, what is the definitive Tormore style of single malt, we'd be struggling because it tends to be quite so hidden and chameleon and just disappearing into blends. So I think that it's definitely a distillery to be looking out for in the future when it has that. I mean, Sukhinder has sold the Whiskey Exchange to Pernod Ricard essentially, and partners. So he's definitely got the budget that many smaller distilleries do not actually have. So he's got the sort of budget that Billy Walker had for Glenallachie, which meant massive cask investment. And I think he's fully aware of that. And I think it's just going to be one of the genuinely exciting resurrections in the next 10 years in the Scotch whisky scene. So we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, I'm just saying this because it distracts from the fact that I've got yet another question wrong, and I'm being ritually humiliated by the whiskey enthusiasts who know so much more than I do.
Exactly the point. Yeah. Exactly the point. So let's bring on the ultimate in asshattery. Let's bring on question 10. This is deliberately designed to be obtuse. Everyone knows what they're in for with this one. The asshat at the end, you have to know the answer to 2 things to get it right. Here we go. Good luck, Ralfy. Strap in. How many different flora and fauna expressions, standard expressions at 43%, not the cask strength versions, have been released since they were originally launched in the early 1990s? A lot of them have been lost and discontinued, distilleries sold on. How many in total flora and fauna have been released over the years? Impossible, right? Is it about the same as the number of A, the number of years that Arran malt has been sold? I'm specifically speaking about Lochranza distillery. B, the number of distilleries currently owned by Diageo today, Scotch malt producing distilleries I'm speaking about, just in case it needs clarified. And C, about the same as the number of Scotch malt distilleries located on an island. So, the amount of years that Arran have been retailing their malt in a bottle. B, amount of current distilleries, Scotch malt distilleries owned by Diageo today. Or C, is it the same as the amount of Scotch malt distilleries located on an island? This is what Ass Hattery is all about.
Yeah.
Guesswork, Ralfy? A wee bit of intuition in there?
It's going to be what's called intuition, bordering on complete shot in the dark punt. You mentioned, you see in C, it says malt distilleries are located on an island, not islands. So it's an island, a single island.
No, any malt distillery that's located on any island, just to clarify.
An island, not one single island.
No, any distillery that can claim that they're located on an island, whether that island is Skye or Orkney or Islay or Jura or Arran or Lewis or, you know.
Well, I find myself going for the middle number, because the flora and fauna expressions, they were extensive. But that's excluding the cask strength. Now, there was the occasional cask strength.
Yep. Put it out your head. It's just the standard flora and fauna bottle.
Standard flora and faunas. I'm kind of moving to C, actually. But I'm between A and C, but not B.
Does this help you?
No,
I can tell you.
Oh my goodness.
Arran have been bottling and selling their malt whiskey for just over 25 years, almost 26 years now. Since 1999, they put out a 4-year-old. Diageo owned 28 distilleries, but then they reopened Port Ellen and Brora, and it's up to 30 malt distilleries owned by Diageo. I'm not counting their part share in North British here or Cameron Bridge out in Fife. Just malt distilleries, 30 distilleries that they own. And Scotch malt distilleries located on an island, 22. That's Islay, Jura, Arran, Orkney, Skye, Rassay, everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps you.
Not really, but it's not as high as 30. And I'm thinking, I'm going to go for A. I'm just going to go for A, because I need to give an answer, and folk will start be getting quite excited because they've got it right, because they're true malt geeks. So I'm going to say A. Years Arran malt has been sold.
Yay!
Oh,
fantastic!
My luck has returned.
There are 26 flora and fauna expressions have been available over the years, and of course some of them are super rare, some of them are very difficult to get hold of, some of them are not even owned by Diageo anymore, but regardless, 26 is the answer. Did anyone manage a 10 out of 10 tonight? Let's have a wee look in the chat and see. Oh my goodness, Sugar Kitty, it looks like it's celebrating. Ralfy, no, you scored more than that.
I got 5 out of 10, Roy.
Regardless, that's a pass mark.
Of that.
That's a pass mark on what I told you, and you know what's good about that? It's good about this in two ways. You did not know what the questions were in advance, and you played along willingly. You went straight in there, you played the same game as everyone else, still scored a pass mark. And we also demonstrated that the community, exactly on theme, know more than we do, because there's so many of them. But even when they're playing on an individual level like they are for the quiz at the end. But anyway, Ralfy, congratulations on the pass mark, big guy. Well done.
Well, thank you very much. Cheers. You good health, everybody. All you malt all you malt enthusiasts who beat me in the score, feel free to boast and brag about it.
Well, let's see who did beat you. Eric R got a 9 out of 10. Malt Minion Chuck, good to see Chuck, got an
Yeah.
8. I'm looking. Andrew Pearce got a 5 out of 10 as well. Lassie Hort Otsman got 8. John Kennedy 7. Josh Kennedy, sorry Josh. It looks like the first time maybe I've welcomed you in. Nice to have you here. Graham Walt James got a 7. Woo. Celebrations from Mike Molasses got a 9 out of 10. Lachlan on a 7. Bogdan on a 7. I'm looking for the 10s. I'm going to scroll down a bit. I might miss a lot of you. Sugar Kitty put the emojis in there for a 10. Fantastic. Everyone said it could be the only Sugar Kitty scraped through till the end. Falsgraph is saying, did the ass hat a rare occasion? Celebrating a 9. Fantastic. Superb, Klaus. Ginger Genius, 9 out of 10. The student beats the master.
Had to happen.
Only in a brutal scenario like the quiz at the end.
Absolutely. It means the master's done his job, Roy.
That's right. Absolutely. Of course. Daisy Vleeland. Daisy, so good to see you. And I've seen your name pop up a couple of times tonight, but it's just the first time I've mentioned you. It's good. It's great that you're here. Jimmy Legg has bought us a wee dram. Ralfy has only ever not scored one whiskey. The Bruichladdich 2001 Resurrection Dram. And review number 32 in March of 2009. I'd say it was an 89. What would Ralfy say?
Do you know, I don't even remember that. The Resurrection, Bruichladdich, quite fond of the unpeated. So I'd give it an 80. I'd 80 at that time, 85.
Our community knows more than we do, Ralfy, even about us.
Yeah.
We have to be careful what we say. We can never tell lies. Because we don't have the memory to remember the thing that we lied about, right?
It's not this, and the great thing is that when you're just giving an opinion and sharing, you just don't need to. You just don't need it.
Yeah, there's some pragmatism in that as well. Jimmy, thank you very much for the cool question, and thank you for the drama as well. Good to have you, buddy.
Yeah.
Jimmy will be here on the 28th. He'll be in Glasgow on the 28th of September. Again, Graham Brown is saying, well, we'll take an 85. So Graham, now these days he works for Bruichladdich, but back in the day, Graham was not. Back in the day when you reviewed that, and back in the day when it was made, he was certainly not. He wasn't even allowed to drink back then, I imagine. Ralfy, I don't know what we've achieved tonight, but we have achieved a couple of things. We've accepted and established and even given proof to the notion that the community are more knowledgeable than us. And everything that we do, everything that we think about, every concept that we come up, everything that we share needs to lead with that idea that we are preaching to a lot of people who know a lot more than we do. Yeah. And yet somehow try and formulate it and put the messaging together to make it still interesting for people who are coming into it and new at the first time. I think you do a good job of that. I think you've done an amazing job of that, whether you think about it or not, for the last 15 years. And for that, I doff my cap to you. The other thing that we've achieved tonight is we've been able to weave that idea into evolving the Online Scotch Whisky Awards going forward for this next session. Ralfy, like every year we go into, we might fail, buddy, right? We might make a mess of it. Yet, I kind of feel like we just do the best that we can. Earnest, good, community-based sharing, and see what comes out of it. We are not making decisions, we're sharing the message.
We haven't made a mess of it yet, Roy. Best foot forward. And tonight, importantly, we have both with our audience, with the malt mates, with Pat Pals joining us, we have launched the OSWAs, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards 2024. It's going to be exciting. Everybody's involved, even more than before. Let's see where this goes. Cheers, folks.
Cheers, folks. Ralfy, my friend, stay if you can till the post credits and we can raise a wee glass and make sure everything's okay. Thank you for joining me tonight to kick off another vPub season, and thank you for your continued trust in everything, including the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's all good. All good.
I'll see you on the other side, fella.
Yep.
It's always a pleasure to have him here. It's always very easy for me. It's always very comfortable for me just to kind of put things towards Ralfy and listen to his take, listen to where he wants to take the discussion. It's going to be interesting to see where you want to take the OSWAs discussion. Where do you want to take the nominations this year? Because you're going to be invested up the front end. I cannot guarantee to anyone that their nomination or their suggestion is going to make it through the process and come out into the nomination show on the 14th of September. But putting this thing in the front end gives you a chance that no one had until we'd taken that step. If you need to know any more, have a look at oswa.co.uk. But if you're really stuck on anything, any of the dynamics, or you're just annoyed or curious about something, you can get in touch with me directly. Of course you can. I'm looking forward to the OSWAs for this year, but more than anything, I'm just very, very grateful to be back behind the bar again in the vPub and to see all the familiar faces and all the everything that I enjoy about my Thursday nights. Raise this wee glass and remind you all that you're very, very dearly loved, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, Slanchava Whisky Folk. Cheers.